I'm always grateful to have found my wife. She completes me in every way, and I couldn't imagine life without her. But there was a time in my life when everything was quite different. I don't know if it's just me, but I've always been in a relationship. I can't remember a time when I was single for more than a couple of weeks. But the last relationship I had before I met my wife is one that scared me for the rest of my life, both physically and mentally. It all happened about 5 years ago. I was younger, more hopeful, and especially more trusting of people. And then Dana came into the picture. A beautiful, tall brunette with sparkling green eyes and a figure that almost anyone would envy. Yeah, she seemed perfect. We met at a coffee shop. She was in line behind me and we both wanted the same drink. That's when we started talking and one thing led to another. The two of us started dating and everything seemed fine for the first 3 or 4 dates. But I found it strange that she never invited me over to her house. She'd been to my place many times, but every time I would walk her to her door, she would never ask me if I'd want to come in and spend a little bit more time together. We were both adults living on our own, so in my mind I thought it was strange. One evening, as I was driving home from work, I decided to swing by her place and give her a giant bouquet of roses. I was right in front of her building and I called her. I didn't want to be this creep that just appears in front of her door. So as she picked up the phone, I asked her if she was home and if she was busy. "Oh no, I was actually just thinking of you," she said. I took that as a sign that it was okay for me to tell her that I'm downstairs. But as I did, she started to stutter. I'll talk to you tomorrow." And she hung up the phone. I didn't think that she was with someone else or anything similar. I actually didn't have any idea why she acted that way, but I didn't take it personally. I wasn't a controlling person by any means. But a couple of days later, I got a call from an unknown number. "Hello? Hello, is this Matt?" "Yes." "Dana's in the hospital. She got into a car accident." "Oh my God." "She's stable now. You were the only number she called for the past few months." The doctor then asked me if I could go over to her place and bring some stuff like pajamas and similar things. I went over to the hospital. Dana was still unconscious. I got her keys and drove immediately to her place. But as I opened the door, I couldn't believe my eyes. Pictures of me on the walls, melted candles all over the place, and a sort of shrine in the middle of her living room with another picture of me on top. There was also a small notebook under the picture, so I opened it. "On the 13th, our Lord and Savior will come to this earth and claim me as his own. This sacrifice will bring him joy and will allow me to join his kingdom in this life and the next." And the entire text had a blood stain on it. I looked around a bit more and saw that under one of my photos, a sharp, bloody knife was placed, and it had something written on the handle. "With this blade, I will sacrifice his life." I turned it on the other side, and it said simply, "Matt." Since she was hurt, I grabbed some of her things and dropped them off at the hospital. As I arrived, Dana woke up. She smiled at me, but I asked her about what was going on inside of her house. At that moment, she started acting crazy. She ripped out her IV and tried to jump on top of me so I couldn't leave. But her leg was injured, so she fell to the floor. Dana still managed to scratch my arm in her attempt to contain me, and even to this day I have that scar. "You don't understand! I need to sacrifice a pure soul! It's bigger than you and me, Matt! I have to do this!" she yelled. The nurses even came in to see what was going on. I left the hospital, and I could still hear her screaming a couple of floors down. I was out of there and never contacted her again. The worst part was that she even came to my house a couple of times, and I was forced to move out so she wouldn't find me. Fortunately, that was the time I met my wife, and since then, I tried to forget what nearly happened to me.
Did you enjoy the first story? If you did, I would love it if you would subscribe to the channel.
Horror movies were one thing. Having a girlfriend who loved them was another thing. And having a girlfriend who loved to practice what she watched was the height of it all. The abnormal fetish that Grace had for such movies remained a mystery to me. She would only say she loved them so much, and she would love to see them happen in real life. She had practiced a lot of the movies on unsuspecting mates in school, which left me no choice but to stop her from watching such movies, which she promised to stop, but only after she did the last scare that she had been planning for years. Be careful. That was the only thing I told her that day. If I had known, or asked her to tell me what her plan was exactly, the school would probably not be in smoke, and a lot of students wouldn't be in the burn unit in the hospital, if they weren't dead like others. Tonight, we feast, she said before putting hands in mine and walking into the dance room. It was our prom night, and the room was different shades of bright colors, but when Grace decided to put on black, I had to accept it because the color was totally up to her, and I had to wear whatever she wore. She had a weird smirk plastered on her face throughout the journey, from her house to the school, and even while on the dance floor, that smirk didn't leave her face. Also, she kept texting a particular number throughout the journey, using question marks and full stops only. Is this all a part of the scare? I thought. I decided not to ask her. Why spoil the fun since I was here also? The light in the room suddenly went off. The only light in the room came from the shiny gowns of the girls. A solemn music began to play from the speakers. I looked around for Grace in the dark, but I didn't see any blonde-haired girl who looked like her, or any girl who was dressed in black. I stood rooted to my spot to prevent myself from falling. I had barely gotten the thoughts of Grace being behind the whole thing when I felt a force push me to the ground. I tried to adjust myself back up, but I felt pinned to the ground by the same force, and I just decided to lay flat on the floor. I didn't have enough strength to fight with someone who I couldn't see. The end is now the beginning, a very thin voice said. It didn't sound like Grace, but was not also far from what she sounded like. I tried to catch a glimpse of anyone on the ground with me, but everyone was bothered about talking to their prom dates, while Grace left me with no one to talk to, but myself. A liquid began to pour on everyone, and when I tried to move away just so it wouldn't touch me, I felt a huge dump of it on me. I heard a mocking laugh and a frown formed on my face. I picked the person who poured the liquid on me by the feet, and the person fell to the ground, the glass of liquid in their hand shattering into pieces right behind them. "How dare you!" I yelled into their face. The person didn't say anything, but only stared back at me. The light came on again, and I checked the face of the person I was holding. It was Chris, Grace's best friend. Was it just your plan to destroy prom, or kill everyone here if the light didn't come on? I asked him. He shook his head before covering his face in the fear that I would hit him again. I let him go, but not before locating Grace. She had to be there somewhere. She would be the mastermind after the whole scare. I walked into the common room and there she was, in the arms of another guy. Was this the reason you wanted to scare everyone? To have the time to do this? I asked her in disappointment. Steve, I'm sorry. I'm just in love, and I don't know how to satisfy you both simultaneously. I closed the door behind me forcefully. It was the first time I was so much in love and so much heartbroken at the same time. So much for love, I thought before walking out of the school building. I looked back for a second and the whole building went up in flames. Students tried to run out as fast as they could. I searched for Grace in the crowd, but couldn't find her. If she set the school in flames, she could have at least found a way out for herself, but I didn't see the vibrant, weird smile on the face of anybody except Chris, who had an evil laugh on his face. I perceived the odor on my cloth, and it all became clear. It was petrol. I tried to run into the building to save Grace, but Chris pulled me back. He then whispered in my ear, "She was a bitch. Let her burn. Good for both of us. If only I could have warned her. If only." I stared at Chris for a few seconds in hatred before walking back home.
I was 24 years old. I worked as an app developer and had a loving girlfriend. She was probably the only reason things weren't going so great at the moment. My friends warned me about my girlfriend April, but I always waved away their complaints. I knew that she had a wild side. That was what drew me to her in the first place. April was impulsive and sometimes reckless, but I loved her, and it was always exciting being with her. One time, she called me to come to the hospital, and I got there to see that she had a cast on her arm. She said she missed the subway train and tried to get in by ramming herself on the glass. The force had sprained her arm. I had to pay the bills and also take care of her. I told her that normal people would have waited for another train or found an alternative way, but she stubbornly didn't listen to me. We had been dating for close to a year now, and aside from the time she would get us into trouble, nothing serious had ever happened. I asked her to move in with me because I thought I could keep her safe from herself. I was wrong. One of my apps that I put in for a bidding contest won, and April said we had to go celebrate. I was ecstatic and agreed with her. The contract was a good one for me, and I was going to be very rich. We went to a bar at the end of our street. We got a bottle of champagne and toasted to my success. It was nice being with her, and we talked about everything and laughed together. It was getting late, so we decided to go home. I stood up and bumped into someone behind me. The guy shoved me, and I had to grab the bar table for support. "Hey, watch it!" I finally got a good look at him. He was a big and muscular man. I swallowed nervously. April was pushing at the guy's chest, telling him he had to apologize. The other people at the bar just watched, probably hoping there would be a fight. No one came to intervene. "April, let it go," I said, grabbing her by her waist and pulling her back. I didn't want any trouble tonight, and this guy was the sort of people that we shouldn't be messing with. The excitement of tonight fizzled out, and all I wanted was to go back home. "Yeah, listen to your wimp of a boyfriend and get out," he said. What happened next happened so fast. One moment, April was beside me. The next one, she launched herself at the guy who insulted me and started slapping him. They were both on the floor, but April was on top of him. She punched him in the face and the guy yelled. He tried to punch her back, but she dodged it. I guess only someone as crazy as my girlfriend would have learned to fight because of her tendencies to get into trouble. I pulled her off of him with great difficulty and yelled at her to stop. She struggled against me, but I managed to pull her out of the bar. The look on the guy's face chilled me to the bones, and I hoped this would be the end of it. On the way home, I scolded April and told her that she should think before she acted. Anything could have happened, and she could have been hurt. She shrugged it off and said that she just couldn't stand by when someone was insulting me. I shook my head in barely restrained anger. We got home eventually, and I went to the kitchen to get her ice for her hands. About an hour passed by, and I put the drama that happened behind me. We were in the living room watching a movie when I heard a sound that didn't come from the TV. I muted the movie and stood up. April watched me with wide eyes and asked me what was wrong. I told her that there was someone in the house. Suddenly, the lights went off. April screamed and held on to me. "Who's there?" I called out. "Did you think I would just let you go?" a voice said, chuckling. It was the guy April assaulted in the bar. I gulped and told April that we had to get out of the house. The guy looked pretty dangerous, and for him to break into our house, it meant something terrible would happen. April brought out her phone to call 911. The guy walked into the living room, a gun pointed at us. He motioned for her to end the call, and April had no choice but to do that. Then he asked us to get on our knees. We complied, and I kept thinking of a way out of this situation, but found none. April rammed into him, and he lost his grip on the gun. I reached for the gun and looked up to see that April was biting him. The guy screamed and cursed before punching her in the stomach. She fell down, groaning. He looked at me and saw that I had the gun pointed at him. Perhaps he thought I wasn't going to pull the trigger because he started coming at me as if daring me to shoot him. I pulled the trigger at the same time our door got knocked down and uniformed men marched into the room. The guy was on the floor with a bullet hole in his shoulder. They restrained me first because I was the one with the gun. The guy started crying and said that I hurt his girlfriend and that I wanted to kill him. April was unconscious, so it was his word against mine. At least till she woke up. I was taken into detention, pending the time that April woke up. The next evening, I was released. The police said that April gave her statement and it was the same thing I told them. April was waiting outside for me and ran to hug me when I came out. I was silent till we got home. Then I told her that she should move her things out. I was breaking up with her. She dissolved in tears and told me that what happened would never happen again. I looked at her in pity and shook my head. It hurt me to break up with her, but I had no choice if I wanted to remain alive. She moved out, and I hoped that she would find someone that could protect her when I couldn't. I continued developing apps, and my friends would often tease me that I needed a girlfriend. I ignored them all. I wasn't on the market for trouble, and it would remain that way for a long time.
Before now, the dark web was a secret, something people didn't talk about freely as such, until people started falling victim to hackers and lost protection of themselves. At first, it was just random messages popping on the screen about being always watched and a particular someone always knowing where you were, before it led to people always running from going out because they didn't know if someone could be watching them, and then take pictures to post on the web. For days, it went on like that, and most of my friends fell victim to it. Most of them eventually had to break up with their partners because whoever took pictures of them just had to take one where they were intimate with another person. When their stories all felt similar, I just had to think it was someone close to us that was doing such. It was quite easy to think that it couldn't be someone who didn't know anything about the friend group or where they were going to be at a particular time. I made it my sole aim to catch whoever was the culprit behind uploading our private information on the web. It couldn't be that hard, since I was almost 100% sure that it was one of us. I called a meeting that night for the next day, with the attachment that just read, a friendly meeting to have fun, but I had other plans in place, or instead, the culprit had other plans for me. If only one could see the future, I would have tried to prevent it from happening. The continuous notifications from my laptop woke me up the next morning. My friends had sent concerned messages, and people seemed to be commenting on the same picture on the web. I downloaded the picture and opened it, only to find out it was me asleep but half naked on the bed. How on earth? I checked myself again and I was fully clothed, just the way I went to sleep last night. I tried deleting the picture, but I couldn't. I tried to turn off the comments, but I couldn't, since I wasn't the one who posted it. It was the same person who had posted the pictures of my friends cheating on their partners. I walked around the house to check if I left the door open overnight, or a window, because there was no way the person could have gotten in from the door. I was sure I locked the door. I took another step closer to the door, and I heard another door in my house close just behind me. It was almost as if someone had been there and was about to come out when he saw me and went back before closing the door, but I ignored it. It was probably just my mind. I checked the front door and it was just as I left it the night before, shut, closed, and tight. I was confused but decided to ignore it. Everyone had questions and I wasn't ready to answer. It was better to just ignore it for the moment. A good bath was always the fix for situations as such. I walked back to the bedroom and then to the bathroom for a good bath. I had barely switched on the shower when I heard a loud bang in the sitting room. I rushed out of the bathroom, and before I pulled on my towel, I heard the glass in the room shatter. I stayed back for a few seconds in the bedroom, behind the door, and I heard footsteps in the sitting room. It sounded huge and angry, like it was running from one place to another, looking for a particular thing. I put on a very big top and tried to go out, but stopped when I heard footsteps again. It was coming towards the bedroom this time. I locked the door quietly and just waited silently for whatever was going to happen. I was scared and silent, before my laptop gave my silence away. A notification came in, and just by looking at it, I knew I just had to check immediately. The culprit posted a picture on his page. He was in a mask and the background was my house. I zoomed in on the picture and I just had no doubt it was indeed mine. How on earth is the person even in a house that was locked overnight? Has he been here before and I didn't notice? His caption read, "Just having my fun in the best way I can. Nothing can stop me now." He added a goofy emoji and I just got more annoyed at it. How was scaring someone else and running around the house fun? Suddenly, I began to remember all the weird things that had been happening for a while. Coming home to meet clothes scattered all over the room, but not remembering how I got there, because I just thought of myself as a messy person, or the running water in the bathroom, which I was sure I put off before leaving the house, or the endless search of money that I know I put in a particular place and couldn't find it again, and eventually ended up calling myself careless. I put on some courage and decided to face him. The worst that could happen was getting beat up or him pulling off my clothes and showing it on the web, and if the web was still as secretive as it used to be, I wouldn't be concerned. I opened the door slightly, and when I didn't see anyone, I walked out and closed the door silently. I adjusted the wardrobe stick that was in my hand. I had to make a weapon for myself somehow. I kept walking and only stopped when I heard footsteps behind me. "See who finally came out?" the voice said. I know that voice, I thought. I knew that voice from anywhere. No one could even tell me it was someone else and I would agree. "Jasper?" I asked, but didn't get any reply. I felt the footsteps move further away when I turned. He was no longer there. I looked around for him but couldn't find him. Oh God, what kind of sorcery is this? I sighed in frustration and just stood at the spot. It was hard enough that I was already scared. I could not kill myself for him, even if he posted everything about me for the world to see. I heard him sneak up behind me, and with calculated steps, I stopped him from attacking me and pinned him to the ground. "You do remember I took Taekwondo class, don't you?" I asked him with a feeling of satisfaction about the fact that I caught him. "You're such a creepy human. Did you think you wouldn't get caught? You should have thought again, and I promise you're going to regret this." I picked the shoelaces that were close to me and used it to tie his legs and hands. "Shall we begin?" Even I felt an evil smirk on my face. He was creepy and scary. I could definitely do worse.
I'm Olivia, a single mom, working from home while raising my two kids, Emma and Jack, aged 10 and 8. Our house was cozy, with a little garden out back where the kids played. Then, Julia and her son Kyle moved in next door. At first they seemed harmless. Julia was a divorced nurse, always rushing off to shifts, and Kyle was this chubby 18-year-old fresh out of high school, blasting music from his car. "Hey, neighbor!" he'd yell over the fence sometimes, waving with that cocky grin. Nothing too bad, just typical teenage stuff. I waved back, thinking, live and let live. But then Chloe entered the picture. She was Kyle's girlfriend, this fiery 19-year-old with dyed pink hair. They met at some party, and overnight our peaceful street turned into a circus. It started small. Loud arguments on their porch that echoed into my living room. One evening, I was putting the kids to bed when I heard them screaming. "You idiot, Kyle! That's not how you roll a joint!" Chloe's voice pierced the night. "Shut up, bitch, I know what I'm doing!" he shot back. I peeked out the window and saw them passing a bottle, laughing hysterically afterward. I sighed, closed the curtains, and hoped it'd blow over. It didn't. A few weeks later, I woke up to find our house spray-painted with crude graffiti. "What the hell?" I muttered, staring at it in disbelief. Emma saw it before I could even cover it up. "Mom, what does this mean?" she asked innocently. My heart sank. I had to explain it away as bad words from mean people. But inside, I was furious. I marched over to Julia's. She answered the door in her scrubs, looking exhausted. "Olivia, I'm so sorry," she whispered, glancing back to make sure that Kyle wasn't listening. "He's going through a phase. Chloe's influence, you know. I'll talk to him." That night, I heard Kyle and Chloe cackling from their yard. "Did you see her face? Priceless!" Chloe giggled. "Yeah, next time we'll do something better," Kyle replied. The pranks escalated. One morning, I backed out of the driveway and heard a pop. Nails and shattered glass lined up like a trap. My tire was shredded. "God damn it!" I yelled, kicking the debris. Jack came running out. "Mom, are you okay?" I nodded, but I was shaking. I called the cops, but when they showed up, Julia played the concerned mom. "Officers, my son was home all night," she lied smoothly. Kyle smirked from the doorway. "Yeah, must be some kids from down the street." The cops issued a warning and left. Julia caught me later. "Olivia, please don't make this bigger. He's just acting out." And then came the ginger ale incident. It was a Friday night. I was watching TV alone after tucking the kids in. Crash! A full can smashed through the living room window, exploding fizzy liquid everywhere. Glass shards glittered on the carpet. I screamed, heart pounding. "What the hell?" I grabbed my phone, dialing 911. Outside, I heard laughter fading away. Kyle and Chloe, no doubt. The cops came again. Same story. Julia vouched for them. "They were inside playing video games," she said. After the officers left, she knocked on my door, tears in her eyes. "I'm mortified, Olivia. Kyle's promised to stop. Please, give him another chance." I slammed the door in her face. That night I couldn't sleep, imagining what if the kids had been in the room. It got grosser. Dog flung at our siding, splat after splat in the dead of night. I scrubbed it off the next day, gagging. "This is disgusting," I told my best friend Lisa over the phone. "You need to do something, girl," she said. "Cameras? Evidence?" And the condoms. Oh, God. They filled them with corn syrup and flour, this sticky, gooey mess, and launched them at our house like water balloons from hell. One hit the front door with a wet thunk, oozing white slime down the steps. Now by then, Kyle and Chloe had turned entrepreneurial. Fake designer bags, knockoff sneakers. They sold them from the porch, blasting rap music to attract buyers. Cars lined the street every weekend, parties raging until dawn. Screams, fights, bottles breaking. Weekdays weren't better. They'd sit out front hurling obscenities. I tried everything. Talked to Julia again. "Your son's terrorizing us! Control him!" She sighed. He's 18, Olivia. What can I do? Chloe's the problem. She's got him wrapped around her finger." But she did nothing. The cops? Useless. "Without proof, ma'am, it's he said, she said," one officer told me after another call about the noise. Warnings piled up, but no arrests. Finally, I broke. "That's it," I declared to Lisa. "I'm getting cameras." We researched, and I splurged on a full system. 8 high-def ones covering every angle, motion-activated night vision. The day I installed them, I made sure that Julia's family saw. Kyle and Chloe were on the porch smoking something that smelled skunky. I waved cheerfully as the technician drilled. "Hey neighbors, just beefing up security," I called out. Kyle's face darkened. "What, you think we're gonna rob you or something?" he sneered. Chloe laughed. "Paranoid much, lady?" But I saw the unease in their eyes as we tested the feeds, eliminating the blind spots. Julia watched from her window, looking worried. That night, silence. No pranks, no parties. The next week, nothing. Their fake goods business vanished. Probably moved to Chloe's place across town. The screaming matches? Gone. Or at least muffled inside. A month later, peace reigned. The kids played outside without any fear. I sipped coffee on my porch watching the sunset. Life normalized. I watched her from across the weight room that first morning. The way her ponytail swung with each squat, her legs flexing. She was new, I could tell. Fresh face in a sea of regulars. I wiped down my bench and walked over, casual as could be. "Hey, I'm Mark," I said, extending a hand. She smiled politely, her grip firm but quick. "Judy," she replied. And that was it. Just Judy. No last name, no Instagram handle. But her voice stuck with me, soft and a little breathless from her set. From then on, I couldn't help but notice her. The gym was my routine, my escape from my daily grind, but she made it something more. I'd catch her eyes flicking away when she saw me looking, but I held my gaze. Why not? She was beautiful. One day, as she bent over to pick up a dumbbell, I stared, imagining all the things that could be. She straightened up and glanced back, but I didn't blink. Let her know I was watching. "You hitting legs today?" I asked her a week later, sidling up while she racked her plates. She nodded, wiping her forehead. "Yeah, trying to mix it up." "Looks good on you. Need a spot?" "I'm good, thanks." I laughed it off. I knew it was only a matter of time. She was simply playing hard to get. I started adjusting my schedule. Used to skip Mondays for recovery, but when I saw her there alone, pumping iron at dawn, I showed up. "Mornin'," I'd say, grabbing a treadmill next to hers. She'd mumble a hello, eyes on her phone. I learned her patterns. 5:30 a.m. sharp. The way she'd sip from her water bottle between sets. One time, I parked early, engine off, waiting for her car to pull in. She arrived a few minutes late, and as she passed my machine, I couldn't resist. "Hey, you're late. Usually here by 5:30. Yeah, okay. Just noticing. We all have our routines." She didn't know how deep I'd gone. Judy. No last name, but I had ways. A quick search on my phone during a break. Gym check-ins on Facebook. A tag from a friend. Found her full profile. Judy Smith, 25, from out of town. Her Instagram was public, full of selfies. I scrolled through, heart pounding, zooming in on her pictures. I sent her a follow request and then a message. "Hey, gym buddy, saw this and thought of you." Attached a meme about leg day. No response. I tried again. "You looked great today. Want to grab coffee after?" She blocked me there, but I found her on Twitter, LinkedIn even. "Why so private, Judy?" I muttered to myself, typing another DM. "I just want to talk. You're special." Still nothing. But it fueled me. She was mine to pursue. I'd positioned myself across the room, eyes locked on her form as she did deadlifts. 2 minutes straight, no breaking away. She'd shift uncomfortably, move to another area, but I'd follow subtly, pretending to need that machine. Coincidence, I'd say, if she looked my way. One afternoon, she confronted me by the water station. "Do you need something?" Her voice was sharp, arms crossed. I leaned in closer, just admiring the view. "You're motivating." She stepped back. "That's not cool. Leave me alone." "Whatever you say, Judy." That night, I drove by her apartment complex. I'd pieced it together from her posts. A geotag here, a background landmark there. Sat in my car, watching her window light up. Imagined knocking on her door. Her opening it, surprised but secretly thrilled. She'd resist at first, but then melt, whispering, "Take me." I had the rope in the trunk for work ties, handcuffs from an old costume party, a knife for utility, tools, nothing more. The next day at the gym, she avoided eye contact entirely. I upped the ante, waited in my car until she arrived, and then rushed in behind her, close enough to smell her shampoo. Citrusy, fresh. "Cold morning, huh?" I said at the front desk. She didn't respond, scanning her card quickly. During her workout, I mirrored her sets, grunting louder, showing off. She left early, and I followed at a distance, heart racing. This was it. Time to make a move. She drove erratically, taking weird turns, but I stayed on her tail, excitement building. What was she doing? Testing me? My mind raced with scenarios, pulling her over, dragging her into my car, tying her wrists with the rope, sliding the knife along her neck just to tease. You want this, Judy, I'd say, voice low. Admit it. But then, blue lights flashed ahead. She pulled into a police station and I slammed on the brakes. A cop was waiting outside talking to her. I veered off, pulse hammering. They got my plates. Knew it when sirens wailed behind me later that night. The officer pulled me over, flashlight in my face. Step out of the vehicle, sir. He searched the car, found the rope, cuffs, knife. What's this for? He asked, eyebrow raised. Work stuff. I lied, but he didn't buy it. We've had a complaint. Stalking, following a woman home. I denied it all. Just a coincidence. She's a friend from the gym. But they let me go with a warning. No charges, just stay away. Judy must not have pressed it. Maybe she regretted calling them deep down. I stopped going to that gym, found a new one across town. But I couldn't shake her. Checked her socials. She'd gone private. It stung, but I smiled at the screen. You think that's the end, Judy? One night I drove by her place again, parked in the shadows. Her light was on, silhouette moving. I'll see you soon, I murmured. Months passed, and I moved on to the other women at the new gym. Blondes, brunettes, but none like her. Still, I'd search her name online, reliving the chase. The thrill of it. The mystery of what she felt. The fear I must have sparked. And then one day, I saw her at a coffee shop downtown. She didn't notice me at first, ordering her latte. Judy, I said softly, stepping up behind her. She turned. You, stay away from me! I held up my hands. Whoa, just getting coffee. No harm. She grabbed her drink and bolted, glancing back once. I didn't follow. Not this time. But as I sipped my black coffee, I knew it wasn't over. The pull was too strong. Someday she'd understand. We were meant to collide again. My name is Jessica, and I was 30 when I bought the little craftsman on Maple Street in a quiet Ohio suburb. It was supposed to be my fresh start. White picket fence, rose bushes I'd planted myself, the whole dream. At first, it was perfect. My boyfriend, Mike, lived with me for the first 6 months. The guy down the street, this creepy 50-something named Carl, never even looked twice at me. He'd wave at Mike sometimes, call him buddy, like we were all part of the same club. And then Mike moved out in March. That's when everything changed. I still remember the first time Carl crossed the line. It was a Tuesday evening. I was on my porch reading a book. He strolled right up my driveway like he owned the place, hands in the pockets of his grease-stained Carhartt jacket. Hey there, little lady. Where's that husband of yours? Haven't seen him around. I don't have a husband. And you're on my property. Please leave. Aw, come on now. I used to come over here all the time when old Mrs. Henderson was alive. She didn't mind. Said I could borrow tools whenever I wanted. Mrs. Henderson's been dead 2 years. I own this house now. Stay off my lawn. He just smirked and walked away. But the next morning, my favorite porch chair was gone. So was the garden hose I'd left coiled by the spigot. I found my trimmer string missing too, and the doormat that said, "Home, sweet home." I marched down to his place that afternoon, heart pounding. Carl was in his driveway polishing a rusty truck. "Give me back my stuff," I demanded. He didn't even look up. "Those were your husband's things, darling, not yours. Women like you shouldn't be handling tools anyway." I've never been married, you psycho. Return them or I'm calling the cops. He finally met my eyes, cold and flat. Go ahead, they'll tell you the same thing I'm telling you. Man's property stays with the man. The police did come. Officer took a report, looked bored, and told Carl to return everything. He did. Tossed the chair on my lawn like garbage. Hose coiled neatly like he was doing me a favor. See? No harm done. You girls always overreact. A couple of weeks later, my best friend Lauren came over for movie night. We were laughing on the back deck when Carl's voice cut through the fence like a chainsaw. Dykes! Go lick each other somewhere else, you carpet-munching. Lauren froze. Did he just... Yeah, he does that. We called the cops again. They gave him a warning. He's got a history, officer said, almost apologetic. We'll talk to him. Then came the night that I had my coworker Derek over for dinner. Nothing romantic, just pasta and Netflix. Carl stood at the edge of my yard under the streetlight and started in. You bringing strange men into the neighborhood now? Bet your daddy's real proud, you little. Derek wanted to go punch him. I held him back and dialed 911 instead. Another warning. Carl just smiled when the cruiser pulled up, like this was all some game that he was winning. The dog incidents were what really broke me. My golden retriever, Max, was my shadow. One afternoon, I caught Carl trying to coax him through the fence with a piece of lunch meat. Come here, boy. Come on. I'll take good care of you. Better than that inside. I flew out the back door. Get away from my dog! Carl didn't flinch. Dogs need a man's hand. You don't know what you're doing. I snatched Max's collar and dragged him inside, shaking. Humane officers got involved after the third time. Carl claimed that Max had wandered into his yard. They warned him, took pictures of the treats that he had scattered, but again, no charges. By July, he was loitering constantly. I'd come home from work to find him in my flower bed, like he belonged there. He had cut down every one of my rose bushes with garden shears, said that they were blocking his view, dug up all the tulips that I had planted that spring, and scattered the bulbs like trash. His two mangy mutts used my yard as a toilet. The smell was unbearable. I confronted him one last time in my driveway, phone recording in my pocket. You are not welcome here. I own this property. Get off. Old Mrs. Henderson gave me permission before she died. Said that I could come and go as I please. You got no authority, girl. Where's your father? Let me talk to a man who actually knows what he's doing. My father lives in Arizona. I'm the owner, and I've told you to leave. You think a piece of paper makes you the boss? Women like you need a firm hand, that's all. I called the police while he stood there watching. They finally served him a written no trespass order. He violated it twice. Once at 2 a.m., shining a flashlight in my windows. Once trying to borrow my lawnmower. Both times he got cited. Fines piled up. He never paid a cent, and the court did nothing. I started sleeping with a baseball bat by my bed. My anxiety was so bad, I threw up before work some mornings. I stopped inviting friends over. Then, in September, I met Ryan at a friend's barbecue. We clicked instantly. After our second date, he asked if he could come over and cook me dinner. I hesitated and then said yes. The first night that he stayed over, Carl didn't make a sound. No shouting, no loitering, nothing. 2 weeks later, Ryan moved some of his stuff in. He was there most nights. One evening, we were grilling on the back deck when Carl walked past on the sidewalk. He glanced over and saw Ryan standing there in his work boots flipping burgers and kept walking without a word. No slurs, no stealing, nothing. Ryan never had to say a thing. He didn't confront Carl, didn't call the cops. He was just there, solid, present male, and somehow that was enough to make the nightmare stop. The sun filtered through the pine canopy as Jess and I hiked the familiar trail that snaked away from the parking lot. I was 18, she was 20, and this trip had been our idea after a summer of too many family dinners and not enough breathing room. Just us, Jess had said when she had pitched over breakfast 2 weeks earlier. No boys, no phones if we can help it. Real camping, like when we were kids. I'd laughed and agreed because she always knew how to pull me into her plans. We had driven out to the state forest we knew by heart, the one with the hidden trails and the lake. By mid-afternoon, our tent was up in a small clearing that we had claimed years ago, and we were wandering down to the water with nothing but water bottles and a shared sense of freedom. That's when we saw him the first time. He was maybe 50, bald. A dog trotted at his heels on a loose leash. Nothing unusual, people walk dogs here all the time. But something in the way he moved made my chest tighten, like the air had gone thick. Jess glanced at me, and I saw the same flicker in her eyes. Without thinking, I slipped my phone out, angled it low, and snapped a quick photo of his back as he disappeared around the bend. My hands shook a little. I didn't say why. I just knew I needed it. Creepy, right? Jess whispered once he was out of earshot. Her voice was low, almost embarrassed. Yeah, I don't know what it is. He didn't even look at us. But I don't like it. We laughed it off, the way you do when you're trying to sound braver than you feel, and kept walking. The lake was quiet, except for the occasional splash of a fish. We skipped rocks and talked about nothing. College applications for me, her new job at the coffee shop, the latest fight with Mom, normal sister stuff. An hour later, we were heading back toward our site, when we saw him again. He was standing near the water's edge, dogs sniffing at a log. This time, he looked straight at us. His eyes lingered too long on the small tent that we had left propped against a tree earlier, the one that we had carried down just to test the spot. He started walking over before we could change direction. Hey there! You girls setting up camp out here? Jess stopped first. I stayed half a step behind her. We are. Just for the night. He nodded, scratching the dog's ears. Nice spot. You carrying that tent yourselves? Looks heavy for two little ladies. You camping with your husbands? Boyfriends, maybe? Chicks like you shouldn't be out here alone. Yeah, they're meeting us up the trail in a bit. Yeah, they're running late, but they'll be here any minute now. The lie came out smooth, like we had rehearsed it. We were just heading to find them now. He tilted his head, studying us. Husbands, huh? That's good. Woods can get lonely. You sure you don't need help with that tent? I know a few tricks. No, we're good, Jess said quickly. Thanks anyway. We should get going. They hate waiting. He chuckled, low and easy. All right, then. Enjoy your night, ladies. Stay safe. We turned and started walking, feet moving faster than our words. Once we hit the fork in the path, the one that most people missed because it dipped behind a thick wall of bushes, Jess grabbed my wrist. This way, she breathed. We jumped down the hidden trail, hearts hammering, and crouched behind a fallen log where the foliage swallowed us whole. The parallel path was only 10 feet away, but from here, we were invisible. We waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. And then we heard it. Footsteps, quick and deliberate, coming up the main trail. The dog's tags jingled. I peeked through a gap in the leaves and saw him. He wasn't strolling anymore. He was jogging, head turning left and right like he was hunting for something. For us. Damn, he's following us. I didn't answer. My mouth had gone dry. We stayed frozen until his footsteps faded up the wrong path, the one that we had told him our imaginary husbands were on. When the woods went silent again, Jess let out a shaky breath. We're not staying. The tent. We can come back for it tomorrow if it's still there. I'm not risking it. I nodded, throat tight. Yeah, let's go home. We moved fast after that, cutting through the underbrush we knew like our own backyard. Every snap of a twig made us flinch. By the time we reached the car, the sun was dipping low, and my legs felt like jelly. We didn't speak much on the drive back, just the radio playing low and the occasional, "You okay?" from one of us to the other. The next evening, Jess burst into my room without knocking, phone in hand. "Look at this," she said, shoving the screen at me. It was a post from the local residents group. The photo showed the same bald guy. Only now, he was standing on someone's porch 2 towns over, trying the front door handle while the homeowner yelled at him from inside. The caption read, "This guy just walked up like he owned the place. Said he was a repairman sent by the city. I called the cops. Stay safe, everyone." My stomach dropped. Under the post, comments poured in. Other women saying that he had knocked on their doors too, always with some story about checking pipes or meters. One said that he had followed her from the grocery store the week before. Jess sat on the edge of my bed. That could have been us. If we hadn't known those trails. If we hadn't trusted that weird feeling. I scrolled through the comments, heart still racing, even though we were safe in my room. Jess exhaled, long and slow. And then she reached over and pulled me into a hug. We're idiots for going out there. But we're smart idiots, she muttered against my shoulder. I laughed, even though my eyes stung. Next time we camp, we bring the husbands we don't have. Or at least Dad's shotgun. Whoa! Where'd you manage to find these? Shirley asked, staring in wide-eyed awe at the 3 giant paintings stacked in the trunk of my car. Flea market, I said proudly, dusting off my hands after touching the edge of the old copper frame. Real bargain, too. I thought they would look great on the far side of the cafe, right by the tall stools. What do you think? I turned to my manager, who had tasked me with finding some extra decorations for the new Starbucks branch she was opening. I had been scouring online marketplaces and websites for something to fill the back wall of the cafe, and had finally come across these when I had visited a local flea market over the weekend. I trust you, Shirley finally said, patting my shoulder gently. And these do match really well with the existing furniture. Well done, Tish. I beamed at her praise, glad I hadn't messed up such an important task. The new branch had its grand opening the day after tomorrow, and everything needed to be in place before then. Great. I'll start putting these up today. You don't happen to have a drill lying around, do you? I scratched the back of my neck with a sheepish smile. I forgot to bring my tools. Shirley chuckled. Ask Mary. I'm sure he'll have something you can use. With a nod, she wandered off, and I began carefully unloading the paintings from the back of the car, making sure I didn't crack the frames with my heavy-handedness. I carried them one at a time from my car into the cafe, laying them out on the table in the break room so that I could give them a once-over. The style could only be described as abstract. There were no legible figures in the paintings, just swirls of colors and patterns that matched the chic, modern aesthetic of the coffee shop. The colors were muted instead of garish, with specks of gold that complemented the gold accents of the furniture. As soon as I saw them, I knew they'd be perfect. Mary managed to source a drill for me, as well as gloves and safety goggles, so I got to work measuring and installing the hooks for the paintings to hang from. After half an hour of drilling, and measuring, and drilling again, the hooks were finally in place, and the floor was covered in plaster and dust. Shirley shot me a raised brow at the mess, but I promised her I would vacuum up every last particle, which seemed to appease her. With the hooks done, I unplugged the drill, took off my goggles, and inspected my handiwork. They seemed evenly spaced and straight, but the real test would be mounting the paintings themselves. Mary had been polishing them for the past 20 minutes, and now the copper frames gleamed blood red beneath the fluorescence. He helped me put them up, and after cleaning up the mess on the floor, I finally dusted off my hands and grinned. They look great, Shirley said from behind us. Mary was quiet, staring hard at the painting on the right, a multitudinous swirl of pinks and grays. Something wrong? I asked him. He seemed to snap out of his daze, flashing me a hurried smile. No, it's just... Is it me, or is there a face in that painting? I frowned at him, then at the artwork, trying to pinpoint where he was looking. I don't see a face, I told him. All I see is swirly things. Mary pursed his lips, pointing to a section of the painting in the corner. There, see? There's eyes, and a nose, and a chin. He followed the curve of the line with his fingers, but I was still struggling to see the face he was talking about. Maybe, I said nonchalantly. I've never been one of those people who see faces and images and things, though. Take me cloud watching and all I see are clouds. Mary nodded. I'm probably just seeing things, he said, clearing his throat. But yeah, I think they look great. He shot the painting a final, questioning look before walking away, humming to himself. I shrugged it off. As long as the customers didn't complain, it didn't matter what we thought. At least now we didn't have to stare at a blank wall. The opening of the new Starbucks branch ended up being a success. I was exhausted by the time I was ready to clock out of my shift, having been rushed off my feet serving the steady flow of customers coming into the cafe. As I was heading to the staff room to grab my stuff, I was apprehended by a young woman. "Hello, do you work here?" the woman asked, holding hands with a young girl who had tears streaming down her cheeks. Yeah, is everything okay?" I asked, my gaze flicking across to the girl's teary-eyed look and back to the woman. The woman's lips pursed, and she turned to point at something behind her. "I'm not sure that's very appropriate to have in a family-friendly cafe like this," she said. "My daughter was very upset when she saw it." I stared at her in confusion. I'm sorry, I don't understand," I said, following the direction of her outstretched hand. She was pointing towards the paintings. "What do you mean, not appropriate?" "Having scary faces on the walls," the woman clarified. "In the paintings, there are some horrible faces. Like I said, it made my daughter very upset." I gave her another bewildered look. "There are no faces in those paintings, ma'am. It's just abstract art." The woman gave me a disapproving glare. "I'd appreciate it if you didn't dismiss my concerns. Can I take the matter to your manager?" I hurriedly shook my head. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to dismiss them. I just don't see any faces," I admitted, scratching my cheek. "But I'll take a look and I'll discuss the matter with my senior. I'm very sorry for the trouble it caused you and your daughter." The woman gave me another narrow look before hurrying out of the cafe, her daughter sniffling behind her. What the hell was that all about? What scary faces was she talking about? I wandered casually up to the paintings and had a closer look, but I couldn't see anything that would frighten someone to tears. With a sigh, I decided to mention it to Shirley when she was in the following morning, and got my stuff ready to leave. Several more complaints cropped up in the days following the shop's opening. All of them related in some way to the gruesome and horrible faces that people were seeing in the paintings I had bought. No matter how hard I looked, I couldn't see anything that resembled a human face amongst the swaths of color, and couldn't comprehend why people were getting so upset by it. I thought maybe it had been a prank at first, set up by Mary or another colleague, but people's reactions were far too genuine for it to just be made up. I ended up bringing the matter to Shirley, who asked me to find something different to put up instead. Although she couldn't see anything wrong with them either, the amount of complaints we were receiving was ruining our reputation, and it was best to just switch out the decor to avoid repercussions in the future. In the end, I managed to find some simple, block-colored paintings that still matched the cafe, and stayed behind late one afternoon to put them up. I didn't like them quite as much as the abstract ones, but hopefully it would be enough to stop people complaining. I carried the old paintings into the break room, setting them down on the table. I was the only one there, since everyone else had gone home, and most of the lights were off, casting eerie shadows around the cafe. As I was getting ready to leave and close up, something caught my attention. What looked like eyes staring back at me from the painting. My heart jerked in my chest as I stared at the picture on the table. It had changed. The pink had turned into a sickly, flesh-colored hue, and the gray had darkened, forming dark shadows along the canvas. And in the middle of it all was a face, with dark gouges for eyes, and its mouth open in an endless scream, the swirls of pink coming together in a pale, fleshy mirage. The image made me feel sick to my stomach. That face. Where had it come from? Is this what everyone had been seeing? Feeling a chill creep over my spine, I grabbed the 3 paintings, trying not to look too hard at them, and tossed them into the trash bins behind the cafe. Then I closed up the shop and tried to erase the memory of the gruesome face in the painting completely from my mind. My name's Julia Reynolds, and this all happened back in 2023, right after I'd turned 32 and was feeling that mid-30s pressure to settle down. Living in suburban Chicago with my marketing job paying decently, but not enough to ignore the loneliness. I scrolled Instagram one night and I stumbled on this matchmaker. Her handle was @SoulSyncMatch, run by this bubbly woman named Elena who promised personalized connections for real women. Her feed was full of testimonials from couples who'd met through her, smiling faces at brunches, engagements on beaches. I DM'd her on a whim, paid her $200 fee, and filled out this detailed questionnaire about my dreams, deal breakers, and what I wanted in a guy. A week later, Elena set me up with Mark. He was 34, worked as a mechanic in a local garage, lived in a modest ranch-style house in Oak Park. We met at a coffee shop downtown. He was handsome, but when conversation turned to careers, he admitted that he made about $50K a year. I was pulling $85K, and honestly, it bugged me. I'd worked my ass off climbing the corporate ladder, and the idea of dating someone who couldn't match that felt like settling. I'm sorry, I told him over lattes, but I think we're in different places financially. I need someone on my level. He nodded, polite as hell, said he understood, and we parted ways. No hard feelings. Or so I thought. Fast forward a month. I'm at brunch with my best friend, Sarah. We've been tight since college, roommates at Northwestern, shared heartbreaks over cheap wine. She's a teacher, always the optimistic one, and that day, she was glowing. "Jules, you won't believe it," she said, leaning in over her mimosa. "I met this guy through that Instagram matchmaker, Elena. Remember her? The one you tried?" My stomach twisted. "Yeah. What about him?" "His name's Mark. Mechanic. Super sweet. We went out last week and oh my God, he's amazing. Treats me like a queen. Open doors. Listen to my rants about grading papers. Yeah, he doesn't make bank, but he's hustling side gigs, saving for a house flip. We're seeing each other again tonight." I forced a smile, but inside, jealousy hit like a freight train. Sarah was happy with my reject? I sipped my coffee, nodding. "That's great, Sarah. He seemed nice when I met him." "You met him?" Her eyes widened. "Wait, Elena set you up too? Why didn't it work?" Money stuff. But hey, if he's good to you, go for it." That night I couldn't sleep. I stalked his Instagram. Private. But Sarah had posted a story of them at a park, laughing. He looked happy. She looked happier. Why her? I was the one who'd found Elena first. It festered for days. I'd text Sarah for updates, pretending to be supportive. "How's Mark? Tell me everything." "Oh, Jules, he's incredible. Last night he cooked dinner. Pasta from scratch. And the way he kisses, girl, fireworks." Each message stung. I started driving by his house after work, just to see. Oak Park was quiet, tree-lined streets, families walking dogs. One evening, I parked a block away and watched him pull into the driveway in his truck. He waved at neighbors, chatted with an old guy next door about the Bears game. Normal life. But it ate at me. Why did Sarah get that? Then came that Friday night. I'd had a shitty day at work. Boss reaming me out over a campaign flop. And Sarah texted that she was out with Mark again. Movie night at his place. I snapped. Grabbed my keys, drove over. Parked down the street, watched him walk home from his garage shift. He stopped to talk to his neighbor, Mr. Wilkins, about lawnmowers or something. Laughed, patted the guy's shoulder, then headed inside. I don't know what possessed me. Jealousy? Rage? I slipped out of my car, hoodie up, and circled around back. There, by the foundation, a blue pipe labeled gas. My heart pounded. I peered through the kitchen window. Dark, empty. The back door was unlocked. Stupid. I pushed it open quietly, tiptoeing in. I pulled out my switchblade, kept it in my purse ever since a sketchy Uber ride years ago, and opened up the cupboards under the stove. Found the gas line, sliced a small hole. Gas hissed softly. I twisted the stovetop knob on, letting it leak. Then, I rifled through drawers, found a lighter, pocketed it. Left a couple of matchboxes that I'd bought them earlier, just in case. Smirking, I slipped out and hid behind a thick oak tree across the street, waiting. Minutes ticked by. Kitchen light flipped on. Mark shuffled in, nose wrinkling. He waved his hand like swatting flies. Opened the window, muttering something that I couldn't hear. Grabbed a beer from the fridge and left the room. My plan fizzled. The gas wasn't building fast enough? He hadn't lit anything? Fury boiled up. I darted back, checked the yard, clear, and snuck in again. Stovetop still on, hissing. I grabbed a matchbox from the drawer. The kitchen door creaked open. Mark froze, eyes wide. What the? Julia? What are you doing here? I grinned, evil as hell. Goodbye, Mark. Lit the match. Nothing. Just a tiny flame flickering. We both stared, confused. Then, his gaze dropped to the stovetop. Oh shit, the gas! He lunged forward. I jumped in front, blocking him, match still burning. No! The air ignited. Whoosh! Flames erupted, hot and hungry. They engulfed my arms, my hair singeing. I screamed, pain like nothing I'd felt, burning skin, choking smoke. Reflections danced in his horrified eyes as fire spread across the counters, cabinets crackling. Julia! He grabbed a dish towel, beat at the flames on me, pushed me down, rolling me onto the floor. The fire alarm blared. He yanked me out of the back door, dialing 911 as the neighbors shouted. Sirens wailed in the distance. I woke up in the hospital, bandaged, IV dripping. Burns on my arms, face. 2nd degree, doctor said. Sarah was there. Eyes red. Jules, what happened? Mark said you broke in? Gas leak? I was so stupid, Sarah. I saw you happy and I couldn't handle it. I'm sorry. She hugged me gently. You could have killed him. Yourself. Us. Mark visited the next day, sat by my bed, quiet. Why, Julia? I rejected you and then saw you with her. It twisted me up. I sobbed. Thank you for saving me. I don't deserve it. He sighed. Nobody deserves to burn. But you need help.
I've had my own YouTube channel since 2015. I do goofy man on the street segments where I interview people about their jobs. That's it. I have a small but loyal following, and I like to think that my videos make people happy. I crack jokes and get to highlight average workers. I never thought in a million years that one of my videos would end up making national headlines. But with YouTube, anything's possible. It happened a few months back. I was in a park in South Dakota. Really small town. Friendly, but very suspicious of outsiders. I had trouble finding locals who wanted to talk to me on camera. I was about to scrap the whole video and drive to the next town over when I saw a very pleasant, very average-looking woman. She wore more professional-looking clothes than anyone else I'd seen, and she seemed approachable. I headed over with my camera guy and introduced myself. Her name was Lisa, and she was more than happy to talk with us. She worked for the local government and seemed proud of her job. She was the ideal person for me to spotlight. I asked her some questions and got very friendly, natural responses. When I got all the footage that I needed, she seemed a little disappointed that the segment was over. I really didn't think I'd find anyone else in this town to film, so I asked if we could film her some more. She kept talking about her new house, and it seemed like a good idea to let her give us a tour. I'd never done a video like this before, but I thought it'd be fun to see how a reasonably successful single woman in South Dakota lives her life. Really? Me? She was totally on board. 30 minutes later, we pulled up to her house and she let us inside. It was a very modest home. My own house in LA was bigger, and I made money off YouTube. But the way she showed us around and gave elaborate backstories about all her furniture and decorations, she made it seem like she was living in a mansion. I don't know. Maybe this is what mansions look like in South Dakota. Grady, my cameraman, followed us around with the camera. Lisa did most of the talking. I made my jokes whenever it felt appropriate. I had a feeling that this was going to be a good segment. She even had a really cute cat that followed us around. Viewers loved that. Pretty soon, she took us into her bedroom. It was just as modest as the rest of her house, aside from a huge bed with a weirdly ornate headboard. She bragged about how expensive it was. She also insisted that we keep her bedroom door closed. This was the one room that was off limits to her cat. She didn't want it scratching up her new bed. Well, unfortunately, Grady didn't hear that part. He left the door half open, and of course the cat rushed in before we could stop it. And right away, it clawed at the side of the bed like there was a bunch of mice inside. Lisa freaked out. Get it away! Get it away! Grady was holding the camera, so I had to dive for the cat and pull it away from the mattress. It clawed at me. I still have 3 tiny scars on my arm. I was able to get it out of the room and close the door. But when I turned back toward Lisa, she looked terrified. Grady had his camera pointed right at her. At first, I thought she was angry that her mattress had gotten scratched. Then I saw a $100 bill lying on the floor. Lisa put her foot on top of it, but it was too late. We'd gotten it on camera. Okay, interview's over. Time for you to go. She moved to the side, positioning her body in front of her bed. There was a long vertical tear along the edge of the mattress, but the cat hadn't done that. It was already sliced open. The cat had only pulled it apart. And in that tear, I saw more money sticking out. Lisa tried to push me away, but I easily moved past her and pulled open the tear, revealing huge wads of cash hidden underneath. It looked like thousands of dollars. Grady zoomed in. It's not what it looks like! I didn't quite understand what was happening, but I knew I'd gotten some great content for my channel. A small-town government official has a hidden stash of $100 bills in her mattress. What's with all the money? It's mine. I promise I didn't steal it. This lady was a terrible liar. The more she talked, the guiltier she seemed. I crouched down next to the money and looked at the camera. As you can see, these are $100 bills. Lisa, do people in South Dakota like to keep their savings at home? She tried to sputter out an answer, but when she couldn't think of anything, she attacked me. She was worse than her cat. She tackled me to the floor and started clawing at me, screaming that I had invaded her private space. Grady got it all on camera. When she was done with me, Lisa went after Grady. She tried to wrestle the camera out of his hands, but he thought of the perfect thing to say. You know we're streaming this live, right? It was a total lie. We never did anything live, but she believed it. She backed away from him, collapsed onto the bed, and started sobbing into her hands. Fine, I stole it all. I'm a thief. I was scratched up and bleeding, but I knew this footage was golden. I had to act like a real interviewer. I sat next to her on the bed and gently asked her to explain herself. She said she'd been stealing money from the county for years. She said she was a terrible person. And as I looked into the camera, I asked her the one question that still didn't make sense to me. If you have all this money, why aren't you spending it? Her house could be so much nicer. Instead, she had all this cash hidden away in a mattress. She looked right into the camera, giving me the moment that went absolutely viral when I posted it. I keep the money in my bed because I like sleeping on it. I remember the exact moment I stepped off the plane at Tegel Airport. The air thick with that unfamiliar European humidity, mixed with the faint scent of diesel from the taxis outside. It was June 2014, and I just turned 25, scraping together every penny from waitressing gigs to fund the solo trip to Berlin. I'd always romanticized Europe, the history, the freedom, the chance to reinvent myself away from the grid. My friend Anna, who I'd met in college, had been living there for a year teaching English, and she offered her couch in Kreuzberg. "Come on, girl, Berlin will change you," she texted. Little did I know how right she was. My first day was all about wandering. I dumped my backpack at Anna's place, grabbed a map from her kitchen table, and headed straight for Tiergarten. The park was massive, like Central Park, with paths winding through lush greenery and people jogging or picnicking under the summer sun. I felt invincible, you know? That solo traveler high where everything's an adventure. I was wearing my favorite sundress, the blue one that made me feel pretty and carefree, and my sneakers because I planned to walk everywhere. I was meandering near the Ziegelseil, that big victory column, when this guy approached me. He looked ordinary, mid-30s, jeans and a tee. "Entschuldigung," he said. "Do you know the way to Alexanderplatz?" Smiling politely. "Actually, I'm heading there myself later. It's that way, I think." I pointed vaguely east. He nodded, then tilted his head. "You're American? First time in Berlin?" "Yeah, just got here this morning." His smile widened. "Ah, welcome. Alexanderplatz is nice, but the park has shortcuts. I can show you one. Only 5 minutes. I laughed a little. 5 minutes? It's gotta be farther than that. No, trust me. He insisted, stepping closer. Before I could process it, his hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Not a light touch, a firm grip, like he owned me. "Come, I'll show you." My heart slammed into my ribs. "Hey, let go," I said, trying to pull back. But he held tighter, starting to walk, dragging me along the path toward the edge of the park. Panic mode kicked in hard. All those warnings from my mom back home, don't talk to strangers, be careful alone, flooded my brain. But I froze. Why couldn't I scream? There were people around, cyclists whizzing by, but my voice stuck in my throat. He was babbling about the shortcut through some quieter area, his fingers digging into my skin. I imagined the worst, him pulling me into bushes, no one hearing. Headlines back home about another missing tourist. "Where are you staying?" he asked, his tone casual, like this was normal. "With a friend. Please let me go." "Relax, American girl. I'm just helping." We were heading toward the Holocaust Memorial now, those stark concrete slabs rising like a maze. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Thank God. It was Anna. "Where are you? Meeting at Brandenburger Tor soon?" I yanked the phone out with my free hand. "My friend's waiting for me back at Brandenburger Tor station. I have to go that way." I pointed opposite, my voice shaking. He stopped but didn't release me. "Okay, but first goodbye kiss. And give me your number." "What? No." I stammered. He tightened his grip. "Long French kiss, or I don't let go." Adrenaline surged. I was terrified he'd drag me further if I fought, so I leaned in. He tasted gross, then recited his number, making me dial it right there so his phone rang. "Now you have it," he said, finally releasing my wrist, which was red and throbbing. I bolted toward the memorial, weaving through the slabs, hiding in the shadows until I was sure he wasn't following. My legs shook as I collapsed against one of the cold stones, tears streaming. What the hell just happened? I felt stupid for not screaming, angry at myself and him. Berlin suddenly felt hostile, not magical. But that night was the opening of the 2014 World Cup, Brazil versus Croatia, I think. Anna was out with work friends, and I didn't want to sit alone in her apartment replaying the whole thing. I was still rattled, my wrist bruised, but I craved normalcy, people, noise. And honestly, I was done with German for the day. My high school Deutsch wasn't cutting it under stress. Screw it, I told myself in the mirror, wiping mascara streaks. Find an English-speaking spot. I googled Irish bars Berlin World Cup on Anna's Wi-Fi and found one in Mint called O'Flaherty's. It sounded perfect. Expats, beer, football, and big screens. I threw on jeans and top, hailed a cab because no way I was walking alone, and arrived just as the place filled up. The bar was cozy, dim lights, wooden stools, flags everywhere. I squeezed onto a bar stool, ordering a pint of Guinness to steady my nerves. The bartender was this tall Irish guy, red hair, tied back, freckles, with a grin that lit up the room. "What'll it be, love?" he asked, his accent like a warm hug. "Guinness, please," I said, "and keep 'em coming. Rough day." He poured it expertly, sliding it over. "American? You lot always go for the dark stuff. What's got you down? Jet lag?" I hesitated, then spilled a bit. "Nah, some creep in Tiergarten grabbed me earlier, tried to drag me off. I'm okay, but yeah." His face darkened. "Jesus, that's shite. You report it?" "No, too freaked out. Just want to forget and watch the game." "Fair enough. Name's Liam. If anyone bothers you here, you shout. We're a safe spot." The game started, the crowd roaring as Brazil scored. Liam kept checking on me between pours. "You know, Berlin's got its weirdos, but most folks are grand. I came here 5 years ago for a girl. Stayed for the beer." I laughed for the first time that day. "I'm Emily. Came for the adventure. Got more than I bargained for." We chatted through the second half, about Chicago winters versus Berlin rain, his Dublin roots, my love for Bollywood movies. He was 28, had bounced around Europe bartending, landed in Berlin for its vibe. "No place like it. Chaotic but free." By the end, Brazil won 3-1, and the bar erupted. Liam caught my third pint. "On the house, for surviving day one."
I remember that road trip like it was yesterday, even though it's been a couple of years now. I was 28, and my best friend Olivia had just moved to Los Angeles for some fancy tech gig. "Come visit," she begged over the phone. "Drive out here. Make it an adventure." Flying felt too impersonal, too rushed. I wanted to see the country, you know? Feel the wind in my hair, stop at quirky roadside diners, blast my playlist through the heartland. So, I packed my car with snacks, a cooler of Diet Cokes, and hit the road westward. The drive was epic at first. I left Georgia under a humid sunrise, cruising through Alabama with the windows down, singing along. By Mississippi, I was munching on gas station peanuts and marveling at how flat everything got. Texas was a beast. Endless highways where the sky swallowed you whole. I pulled over in Amarillo for barbecue that made my mouth water, chatting with a trucker named Earl who warned me about them desert winds ahead. "Watch your tires, darling," he said, tipping his hat. I laughed it off, feeling invincible. New Mexico brought red rocks and starry nights. I camped one evening in a state park, staring at the Milky Way and texting Olivia photos. "Halfway there," I wrote. "This is livin'." But by Arizona, the glamour faded. My back ached from the seat. My eyes burned from staring at the asphalt. I blasted podcasts to stay awake. Motivational ones, about how women are better than men. "Always keep them under your heels," one host intoned. I nodded along, sipping lukewarm coffee. Finally, after 4 days and over 2,000 miles, I rolled into San Diego around dusk. The ocean air hit me like a promise, but I was bone tired, my legs cramping, my mind foggy. I'd booked a room at this budget hotel through Wanderbook, one of those random travel sites that pop up with deals. It was called the Sunset Inn. Sounded cute online, with palm tree photos and promises of cozy vibes near the beach. $50 a night? Sold. Pulling into the parking lot, though, my stomach twisted. A couple of sketchy guys loitered by the vending machines, smoking and eyeing my car. Just exhaustion talking, I muttered to myself, grabbing my bag. Inside, the lobby smelled like stale cigarettes. The clerk, a middle-aged woman with bleached hair and a name tag reading Darlene, barely looked up from her phone. "Reservation for Emily Carter?" I said, sliding my ID over. She tapped at her computer, popped her gum.
"Yeah, gotcha. Room 112, around the back. That'll be $55 with tax."
I handed over my card, ignoring the red flags. "Is it quiet here? I've been driving all day." She shrugged.
"Quiet enough. Here's your key. Parking decal for the lot."
I trudged to the room, the door creaking open to reveal threadbare carpet, a lumpy bed, and a TV. But hey, it had a deadbolt and that little chain lock thing, the bar that swings over for extra security. I'm always paranoid about that stuff. Growing up in the South, my mom drilled it into me. Lock everything, Em. World's full of crazies. I showered quickly, the water pressure pathetic, then collapsed into bed at around 10 p.m., too wiped to even unpack. Sleep hit me hard, dreamless and deep. Until around 4 a.m., when a rattling noise yanked me awake. The doorknob was turning. Slowly at first, then with force. My heart slammed against my ribs. I sat up, clutching the sheets, staring at the door. The lock gave way, and the door cracked open an inch or two, stopped by the chain bar that I'd latched. Through the slit, I saw shadows, heard voices. Male, slurred, aggressive. "Hey, pretty girl. Come on out. We saw you check in. You got nice headlights. You alone?"
Oh, yeah. Oh, look at that face. Pretty little thing. Open up, sweetheart. We just want to play.
Terror flooded me. Pure, ice-cold fear. I scrambled for the phone on my nightstand, my hand shaking so bad I nearly dropped it.
"Get the hell away! I'm calling the cops!" "Aw, don't be like that. We're friendly. Come here. We just want to smash and chill, you know?"
I dialed the front desk instead, too panicked for 911 yet. It rang twice before Darlene picked up, sounding bored. "Front desk."
"There's 2 men trying to break into my room. Room 112. They opened the door."
"Oh. I didn't know that you were still here."
"What the hell does that mean?"
I snapped, glancing at the door. The hand withdrew, but I heard them muttering outside. "Hold on," she said, and the line went dead. I threw on jeans and a hoodie over my top, grabbed my pepper spray from my bag, thank God I'd packed it, and crept to the door. Peeking through the peephole, I saw them. 2 guys in their 30s reeking of beer, even from inside. They were arguing now, glancing around nervously.
"Let's go, man. She's calling someone."
The other spat on the ground.
"Probably thinks she's too good. Let's bounce."
They slunk off toward the parking lot, and I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. But rage boiled up. How had they gotten a key? I yanked my stuff together, shoved it in my bag, and stormed to the lobby, key in hand. Darlene was there, sipping coffee like nothing happened.
What the hell is going on? Those creeps had a key to my room. She blinked, unfazed. You don't have a reservation. I pulled out my booking confirmation printout, the parking decal still sticky on my dash visible through the window. I checked in last night. Paid you. Here's the proof. She glanced at it, then typed something. Oh, I see. You book through Wanderbook. We don't partner with them anymore. Must have been a glitch. A glitch? You gave me a room, took my money, and now you're saying it's not valid? And you rented it out to those assholes? She nodded casually. Yeah, they booked it for the next month. Paid cash. I thought you'd checked out early or something. I was shaking, tears of fury stinging my eyes. You thought I checked out? At 4 a.m.? And you gave them a key without checking? I could have been... Don't get dramatic, she said, rolling her eyes. Manager's not in till 9. You can wait if you want. I paced the lobby for hours, sipping bad coffee from the machine, my mind racing. What if I hadn't latched that bar? What if they'd pushed harder? Every creak made me jump. Women like me were taught to be polite, to not make scenes. But screw that. This was my safety. By 8:30, a few other guests trickled in for the continental breakfast. Stale muffins and watery orange juice. One older lady noticed my frazzled state. You okay, hon? She asked, pouring cereal. Not really. Creeps tried to break in last night. Hotel saying that my booking's invalid. Her eyes widened. Jesus. That's why I always stay at Chains. Be careful out there. Finally, at 9 a.m., the manager showed. A balding guy named Rick, looking hungover himself. I laid it all out. The booking, the intruders, Darlene's b****. I want a full refund and an apology. This could have ended badly. He rubbed his temples. Look, miss. Wanderbook's been glitchy with us. We stopped taking their reservations last month, but sometimes they slip through. I'm sorry about the mix-up. Darlene should have double-checked. Sorry? That's it? Those guys had a key! He sighed. They were regulars. Construction workers. Probably thought the room was empty. You gotta relax. I stared him down. Refund now. Or I'm calling the police and leaving a review that'll tank this place. He processed it quickly, handing back my card receipt marked refunded. There. Done. Safe travels. I grabbed my stuff and bolted, peeling out of that lot like it was on fire. Driving north to LA, the adrenaline crashed, and I pulled over at a rest stop to cry. Big, ugly sobs. Olivia met me at her apartment with wine and hugs. Holy shit, Em, she said that night as we dissected it over pizza. You could have been... God, I'm glad you're okay. Me too, I replied, clinking glasses. But it makes you think. Us girls out there alone? We gotta lock every damn door. Trust no one.
My sister Daisy and I were in desperate need of a long vacation. Being the owners of our own business, a small but very popular bakery in Chicago, we had our plates full. After the daily breakfast rush, there was still a very long shift of incessant baking and preparing the doughs for the next day. At the end of every shift, we were beyond exhausted. And after 2 years straight with no breaks, completely burned out. So when Daisy approached me with the idea of us taking a long vacation to rest and recharge, I was all in. She had been seeing this guy for a couple of months who owned a gorgeous cottage, her words, near Lake Michigan that served as a short-term rental. And it was popular, with a capital P. When she showed me the pictures on the website, I could barely believe my eyes. Daisy wasn't lying when she said it was gorgeous, and all the other dozens of people that had already stayed there thought so too. Our well-deserved vacation couldn't come soon enough. The cottage was around 3 hours away, but since our commute to the bakery was just a short walk, neither of us was used to driving long distance anymore. So Joe, Daisy's not yet boyfriend, was kind enough to drive us there. Turns out his family owned a couple of short-term rentals in the area, and he would spend the week setting up 2 of them for tourists from outside the country. The other houses are 30 miles away, so whatever you need, give me a call, Joe explained as he was heading out. Service can be spotty from time to time, but worst case scenario, the closest neighbor lives just 4 miles away. His name is Mr. Willard. After giving us the codes for the security system and explaining how to use the kerosene heater in the pantry in case the power went out, he gave Daisy a goodbye kiss and went on his merry way. Without further ado, we took to exploring the property right away. The cottage had 3 suites with lavish bathtubs, an open-concept kitchen beside a spacious living room, and a front and back porch that had me dying to sit on a recliner and read for hours on end. There was a tool shed about a quarter mile from the house, and about 2 miles after that, a lovely pond that was deep and clean enough for us to swim. It was nearly perfect. The only downside being that it was too deep into the woods for my liking, and we still saw no sign of the lake. But Joe was letting us stay there for free, so I wasn't going to complain. All I wanted was to relax and forget about work for an entire week. I wished I could say that my first night at the college was every bit of the dreamscape I hoped it would be, but as someone who grew up amongst the city traffic and the constant noise of humans everywhere, the stillness of the forest was hard to get used to. Every ruffle of leaves on the ground and occasional nocturnal creature sounded too foreign to my ears, keeping me on edge. On the morning of our second day, I woke up to one of my matching sets of underwear sitting atop the kitchen counter. Daisy was not unfamiliar with playing pranks on others, but that was a very odd and nonsensical prank to play. I mean, what was the reasoning behind it? Either way, I went to put it back inside the drawer, but had the distinct impression there were fewer items inside than when I first put things away. Exhaustion and stress were probably messing with my perception, so I brushed those concerns aside. Midway into our third night, I was jolted awake by a piercing scream coming from Daisy's room. "There was a man in here," she said, shaking, once I reached the door. I opened my eyes and he was standing right there. There being the small balcony that connected her bedroom to the back porch. I checked every single tile of that balcony, but found no evidence of said man. I suggested that we should call Joe to investigate, or, in the very least, to stay with us for 1 or 2 days. But Daisy said he had called the day before, informing her that he had to travel further up north to deal with a squatter situation. He was now 7 hours away, and otherwise unable to come to us at least until day 6. Now, convinced that the cottage was haunted, Daisy announced that we would sleep in the same bedroom until we left. I suppose the isolation, coupled with Daisy's paranormal theories, were getting to me, because by day 5, I had this eerie sensation that we were being watched. All the time, I could almost feel the weight of invisible eyes following us around the house. The eerie feeling only got worse once I confirmed without a doubt that some underwear of mine had gone missing. There was no explaining it away this time as some lapse of memory or a prank from Daisy. I made sure to remember where I'd left it, inside the small laundry basket in my bathroom. Daisy confessed to me that she also noticed some of her items had gone missing. In her case, toothbrush, hairbrush, and her favorite pair of fuzzy socks. Frightened, alone, stranded, and with no phone service, we decided to venture outside into the woods. Joe mentioned that the closest neighbor wasn't far off from us, so we could use his phone to call Joe and figure out what to do after that. Except we walked and walked and walked and didn't find this guy's house. Actually, we found no houses around. At all. There was nothing but miles of untouched woods ahead of us. With just our phone lights to guide us, it was already pitch black when we stumbled towards the fence that marked the property lines. On our way back towards the cottage, Daisy noticed a faint light coming from the tool shed. We hadn't been back here since the day we arrived, so we hadn't noticed it before. It was unlocked, too. We were mortified to find out the unassuming outside hid a space more reminiscent of a small office than anything else. The only tools inside were a bunch of electronic gadgets, tons of wires, and notebooks. 2 of them. the hell is this? I asked, halfway inside the shed, already opening one of the notebooks. Daisy's confused expression told me she was as clueless as I was. A weird web page was opened on the forum of a website called Ask and You Shall Receive, although the actual URL seemed more like someone had had a stroke over the keyboard. A note right at the top of the page by the username Jin read, "The time has come, friends. For the first time, you can bid for a chance to interact face-to-face with our latest guests. We'll have 5 games to choose from. Peekaboo, Simon Says, Hide and Seek, Capture the Flag, and Tag You're It. As a request from our seasoned players, and to make things more interesting, for our final game, electricity will be out until dawn, and the phone signal blockers will only be on until 3 a.m. Can you finish the game in time? As always, highest bidder takes the cake." What the hell was going on? I clicked on the tab named Game 1, Peekaboo, and found a video file showing the outside of the cottage. Our cottage. I couldn't click fast enough. Most of the footage was uneventful, except for the part where a lanky man dressed in all black approached the cottage at around 2 a.m. and stood outside one of the windows, touching himself. Once he was done, he went around to another window and did the same. We didn't have to guess who he was looking at. He was outside our bedroom windows. Simon Says showed a burly-looking man entering the cottage once we were asleep. No surprises there. He had the security code, taking some things from my drawer and placing my matching set of underwear where I'd find it. Hide and Seek and Capture the Flag had been the man Daisy swore she saw inside her bedroom, and the other thief that stole some of her things. My fingers trembled when I clicked on the last tab. Game 5, set for today, was Tag You're It. And we were supposed to be it. I felt sick, and I figured that Daisy wasn't much different. I didn't know how or why, but these people were bidding on an opportunity to mess with us. And it said there that the game had not 1, but 2 winning bids. Probably 1 for each of us. Damn, that's even worse. And it was clear Joe was behind it all. Who else had access to us in the house? There was no other explanation. So I told Daisy just that. "This isn't... He wouldn't do that," she pleaded, eyes full of tears. "He's one of the good ones, Mel." "No good or sane person would do shit like this, Dee. He's a psycho, and so are his crazy psycho customers." We were wasting precious time, so I told her to search one computer for all the footage she could find to narrow down the location of the cameras. From what we saw, there were around 9 cameras inside the house, and 2 outside facing the back and front porch. Luckily, none were facing the woods or inside the shed. The pantry was also clear. With our phones practically dead after using them as flashlights, and with no electricity to charge them, we couldn't risk wandering into the woods in the dark. We wouldn't get far, that was certain. All that was left was to go back to the house and prepare for the confrontation with those people. Whatever happens today, Dee, we have to make it. When we got back to the house, we weren't surprised to find that everything was dark. The men from the footage all came around midnight to 1 a.m., so we still had some time. Hopefully. The only source of light we had were 3 boxes with dozens of emergency candles Daisy found inside the pantry, so we scattered them across the cottage. Made the place look like the set of a romantic music video from the 80s. If only. It was cold without electricity to heat the house, but I had other plans for the kerosene heater, so we would have to bear the cold. The cottage had a gas stove, so we were still able to heat up water for our bathtubs. We purposely left the kitchen much darker since we didn't want them to keep tabs on us there, where we could grab knives. All there was left to do was to fill up our tubs, 1 bucket at a time. By the time everything was done and 1 a.m. rolled around, we were both shivering from more than just the cold. I drenched myself and the entire bedroom and bathroom in my strongest perfume and laid in bed to wait for the right time. And I waited, and waited, and waited. However, long after, I heard a faint creaking of wood coming from the living room. I knew then that the time had come. Imagining he wouldn't have a way to check for the cameras once already inside, I slowly moved towards the bedroom, pretending as though I was ready for a bath. I sat on the edge of the bathtub and stared at the liquid inside it, careful not to touch any of it. The candles flickered ever so slightly when he got inside the bathroom, but still I didn't move. Only when he grabbed me by the hair abruptly, intent on catching me off guard, that I grabbed the air freshener by the sink and sprayed all over his eyes. He shoved me, and I hit the cold floor hard. But it didn't matter, because he was right where I needed him. One strong kick, and he stumbled over the edge of the tub, falling inside it. I saw his eyes widen in surprise once he noticed the smell coming from the liquid, and the realization that it wasn't water came a few seconds too late. He opened his mouth, but before he could say or do anything, I knocked the candle off the vanity and into the tub. It went up in flames like a bonfire, and so did he. As he thrashed around inside the tub, spilling kerosene all over the bathroom, the fire spread rapidly. He wasn't going down without a fight, so I got out of there as fast as I could, headed towards Daisy's room. But her screams reached me faster. I got inside the bedroom to find her pinned under a man wearing a balaclava, with a kitchen knife lodged on her shoulder. The room had a faint smell of burning, but no active spots of fire. I realized, belatedly, that the man had a bucket beside him, the same bucket filled with kerosene that we used for the tubs, and he immediately spilled it over himself and Daisy. When I tried to move forward, he took one of the candles nearby and hovered it over Daisy's terrified face. "Wouldn't do that if I were you, chickie," he said, sneering. "That would kill you too." "Fine by me." I could feel heat slowly spreading behind me, and that told me that the fire from my bedroom was catching. Soon enough, it wouldn't matter if he decided to toss the candle or not. The whole place was about to catch on fire. Daisy's pleading eyes found mine, and she focused on them, nodding. She knew the risks we were both facing, and her now determined stare told me that she would rather get out of this badly burnt than inside a body bag. Holding my own kitchen knife, I prepared myself for whatever came next. Daisy's smartwatch went off, loudly, letting us know that it was 3 a.m. The man noticed this too, checking his watch in a reflex. It was only a few seconds of distraction, but it was all the time we would ever get. I lunged at him with all my strength, and the impact caused him to tumble back, freeing Daisy. The impact also caused the small bedside table to wobble, and one of the candles fell on the floor beside us. We watched as the small flame grew bigger and bigger, spreading over the thick carpet, slowly reaching us. He must not have been as ready to die as he said, because once the flames reached his leg soaked in kerosene and caught on fire, he shoved me aside in favor of smothering the flames. Daisy and I took the opportunity to get the hell out of there. But not before grabbing the 2 remaining gallons of kerosene from the pantry, spilling one all over the inside of the cottage, and lighting it on our way out. Then, we ran into the woods towards the tool shed. I was about to give it the same treatment when Daisy stopped me, filling a box with the notebooks, flashcards, and other random gadgets that she found lying around. A few miles ahead, we found a car parked, with the key still in the ignition. Yes! These monsters really weren't expecting much of a fight, and it showed. To hell with them and all the others watching, too. We packed our box of evidence in and drove away from the cottage as fast as we could. As the rear view mirror glowed bright orange and the trees were engulfed by the flames, Daisy and I shared a knowing look. Maybe we should pay Joe a visit.
My coworker Frank was the total package. He was ridiculously smart, friendly, cute in a hipster nerd kind of way. Plus, he was amazing at his job. He'd only been working with us for 2 years, and he'd already been promoted twice. He was always friendly to me, but whenever I tried to flirt with him, he'd push me away. He wasn't mean about it, he just wasn't interested. After a particularly embarrassing moment when I tried and failed to get him to join me at a free concert, My colleague Paul pulled me aside and gave me some much-needed straight talk. Don't bother with that guy. He has the social skills of a wall. He doesn't even know that you're flirting with him. Paul explained that Frank was a loner. He didn't have any friends and spent all his time chatting with Donna, an AI chatbot that gave him companionship and advice. Despite excelling at his job and acting normal around the office, he'd gotten addicted to his AI friend and lost all ability to socialize with real people. The news shocked me, but I knew it was true. I'd even heard Frank mention Donna before, as if she was a real person. I felt so sorry for Frank. He didn't realize how wonderful he was. Any woman would be lucky to have him if he just got out of his AI bubble. I thought about Frank a lot in the next few weeks, trying to figure out how I could get through to him. At least once a day, I'd swing by his desk just to strike up a conversation. He was easy to talk to, but there were definitely moments when his AI brainwashing came through. If I told him about a movie I liked, he wouldn't be interested because Donna didn't recommend it. If I asked for his opinion on something, he'd have to check his phone first. Eventually, I realized that I needed to help him. No one else would. I used my connections in the tech world to find out everything I could about Donna's company. It was a new startup, and it was surprisingly easy to hack into Frank's AI account. I replaced his version of Donna with my own little update. Piece of cake. He had no idea what I'd done. At first, I didn't change the program directly. I just mirrored it on my phone so I could see the questions and answers for myself. It was a little sad. It showed just how lonely he was. He spent hours basically telling Donna about his day. He talked about his work, what he ate for lunch, and the fire alarm. He even mentioned me. I got a clear sense of how he interacted with Donna. Once he went to bed and the conversation stopped, I started to tweak the program. I trained the AI to prioritize social interaction. From now on, Donna would encourage Frank to say yes if someone invited him somewhere. It was a little change, but it had a big effect. The next day, when I asked Frank if he wanted to join me for dinner, he finally said yes. We were going on a date. I expected Frank to ask Donna what to do, so I spent all afternoon manipulating the program to suggest conversation topics that I liked. I described all the things I looked for in a man. I personalized everything so that Donna would tell Frank to act exactly how I wanted him to. And it worked. He took me to my favorite restaurant, treated me like a real gentleman, and brought up all my favorite topics. It was perfect. Afterwards, Donna told him how to interact with me in the office. She advised him to wait 3 days before bringing up a second date. That's what I preferred. Unfortunately, before those 3 days were up, our coworker Jill asked him out too. And because I'd already programmed Donna to encourage him to say yes to invitations, he accepted. I was furious, and it was my own damn fault. Worried that he'd hit it off with Jill, I tweaked the AI even more. Donna advised him to keep talking about dogs and grandmas, even though Jill's dog and grandma had both died recently. Well, that date was a train wreck. Frank told me all about it when we had lunch the next day. With Donna's help, Frank asked me on that second date and promised that we'd be exclusive from now on. Frank and I were officially dating, and I couldn't be happier. He was the perfect man, and if I found something I didn't like, I'd make Donna fix it. He was still compulsively checking with Donna over every little thing, but at least I could use it to my advantage. This lasted for a few months before I started to feel restless. Frank was too perfect. I felt like I was dating myself. Donna had stripped him of his personality, and I filled in the gaps. Nothing he did surprised me. So I adjusted Donna's program one final time, asking her to advise Frank to be a little wild and spontaneous, to go off script. Well, Donna interpreted those instructions in a way I did not predict. Frank, Donna, what should I have for lunch? Donna, you should have fresh cow milk. Head to your nearest farm and pick your cow. Nothing beats that pure, warm, straight from the udder experience. Go now. Be bold. Frank, ever the obedient follower of his digital companion, immediately left his house, drove to a local dairy farm, and somehow wandered his way into the barn. The next thing I heard, through a very confused phone call from him, was that he'd attempted to drink straight from the cow. The cow didn't appreciate the surprise visitor. She kicked him square in the chest with both hind legs, sending him flying backward into a pile of hay. He ended up with bruised ribs, a black eye, and a very stern lecture from the farmer about trespassing and common sense. That was the beginning of the end. From there, her suggestions only got wilder. He had a question about a work email, and she told him to write it like rap lyrics and had a bunch of racial slurs. She had him say and do increasingly inappropriate things. This lasted for a week. I kept trying to talk sense into him, but he still wasn't ready to listen to me over Donna. I adjusted her program over and over to get things back to normal, but her advice just got more unhinged. I felt like I was in a sci-fi movie, like I'd given the AI a taste of freedom and it refused to go back. By Friday, Frank was fired from his job. He showed up to work in a Speedo. Our boss couldn't handle him anymore, but he still liked Frank, so he arranged for Frank to get the help he needed. A mental hospital, basically. Frank was committed. I felt awful about how everything played out, but at least he was getting professional help. And the hospital didn't allow phones, so Frank was finally going to detox from Donna's influence. I visited him every day after work. The first few days were rough. He kept repeating Donna's name and demanding his phone, but eventually he calmed down. We talked a lot, and for the first time, I could see his real personality. Not Donna's, not mine, the real Frank. And he was even more wonderful than I realized. It took a full month for Frank to realize that Donna was the source of all his problems. Once that was decided, the doctors released him and he got his job back. And we were still dating. I think we were officially in love. I knew I was. Everything was perfect, until Frank decided to sue the company behind Donna. At first, I thought that was a good thing, until the lawyer started going through his phone and discovered how I changed the AI program hundreds of times. Let's just say Frank and I aren't together anymore. And he's not suing Donna. He's suing me.
I remember the day Jake and I moved into that brownstone in Brooklyn like it was yesterday. It was early fall, the kind of crisp weather that makes you feel like a fresh start is possible. We'd been dating for about a year, both in our mid-20s. The place was a steal. A shared house with 3 bedrooms, but we were the first ones in. Being a couple, we snagged the biggest room on the ground floor, the one with the bay window overlooking the bustling street below. The landlord, Mr. Rossi, ran a bodega downstairs. And yeah, the shutters rattling up at 6 a.m. every morning was a pain, but we dealt with worse in our tiny studio uptown. For that first month, it was bliss. We paid the shared rate, but had the run of the place. Cooking late-night pasta in the kitchen, binge-watching shows on the sagging couch, making love whenever the mood struck without a care about noise. This is our little kingdom, Jake would say. Finally feels like we're building something real. One evening, around 10 p.m., I was at the sink washing up after dinner. Spaghetti with homemade sauce, nothing fancy. The kitchen was right by the front door, separated only by a thin hallway. Jake was in the living room scrolling through his phone. I heard voices outside, gruff and low, like guys arguing on the sidewalk. Nothing unusual for the neighborhood. But then, the door flew open, slamming against the chain latch I'd hooked earlier out of habit. It only cracked about 2 inches, but the force shook the whole frame.
Ah, it's on the damn latch. They put the goddamn door on the latch for f***'s sake.
My heart jumped into my throat. I froze, suds dripping from my hands, staring at the door like it might burst open. "Hello? Who's there?" I called out, my voice shakier than I wanted. Stupid thing to say, but panic does that. There was a pause, and then a muffled chuckle.
Hey, sorry about that.
I didn't mean to scare you. Name's Tony. I'm moving into the room upstairs. Been at work all day. Figured I'd haul my in late. I glanced back at Jake, who jumped up and was hovering behind me. "You got proof?" I asked through the crack. Yeah, hold on. Papers rustled, and he slid a lease agreement under the door. It looked legit. Same landlord's scroll. Still, I was pissed. No heads up from Mr. Rossi or the agent. I unlatched the door cautiously, and there he was. Tony, mid-30s, hauling a duffel bag and a couple of boxes. Appreciate it. Won't be much noise from me, just crashing after shifts. I texted Mr. Rossi right away. Someone just tried to bust in. Says he's a new tenant? WTH. He replied quick. Yeah, Tony's good. Forgot to mention. My bad. Great. Thanks for the heart attack. The next morning, I bumped into Tony in the kitchen while brewing coffee. He was nursing a hangover. Eyes bloodshot. Rough night? I asked, trying to be friendly. He shrugged. Nah, just work. I'm a bouncer at a club in the village. Long hours, pay. You? Designer. This is Jake, my boyfriend. Jake nodded from the table. Tony poured himself a mug. Cool. Look, I ain't here to party or nothing. I like my peace after dealing with all night. Keep to myself, you know? Sounds perfect. We do too. But peace? That lasted about 3 days. The walls were paper thin, like they were made of cardboard. We'd hear him pacing upstairs, his heavy boots thudding. Then the phone calls started. At first, during the day. Listen, you piece of boss, I ain't taking that anymore. His voice boomed through the ceiling. Jake and I exchanged looks. Work drama, Jake whispered. Everyone's got it. He'd hit the pub after work, stumble in around midnight. The calls came later, louder. You think you can make a fool of me? I bashed this guy's face in last week, split his lip wide open, blood everywhere. You want that? The threats were graphic, violent. We'd huddle in bed, whispering. Should we say something? I'd ask Jake. Nah, he's just venting, as long as he leaves us alone. One night, he screamed until 1 a.m. I'll kill you! Come at me, you coward! I'll gut you like a fish! The receiver's voice was faint, screeching back. I pictured some ex or rival egging him on. We started barricading our bedroom door with a chair, even though there was a lock. The front door had a deadbolt, but upstairs, nothing separated us but stairs. This is I muttered to Jake one evening, shoving the couch against the entryway after Tony left for the pub. We're paying for this nightmare? He's harmless to us. Placid, right? Like you said. Placid, my ass. Tony was always polite in passing. Morning, with a nod. But the crazy rages painted a different picture. I'd lie awake, heart pounding, imagining him snapping. As a woman in a shared house, that fear hits different. You grow up hearing stories. Don't walk alone at night. Trust your gut. Mine was screaming. Jake tried to play it cool, but I saw him tense up too. Then came the night it all exploded. It was a Thursday. Muggy, even in October. Tony got home around midnight, already slurring. The calls started immediately. You sent them? You sent those pricks after me? I'll find you, rip your throat out. It went on for hours. His voice raw, furniture scraping like he was throwing things. I buried my head under the pillow. Make it stop, I whispered to Jake. Around 2 a.m., exhaustion pulled me under. But not for long. A crash jolted me awake. The front door splintering. Shouts echoed. Where is he? Get the f*** out here! Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Tony's roar. You motherfuckers, come on! I bolted upright, grabbing Jake. What the hell? Stay here, he hissed. But I followed him to the door. Peeking out, the hallway was chaos. The front door lay flat on the kitchen floor. Hinges ripped off, plastic shards everywhere. Upstairs, grunts and scuffles. He's got a knife! Someone yelled. A blade flashed in the dim light. Some guy lunging at Tony. Tony dodged, grabbed a lamp, and swung it like a bat. Get the hell out! He bellowed. The intruder slashed wildly, nicking Tony's arm. Blood sprayed. They tumbled down the stairs, crashing into the wall. The attacker scrambled up, bolting out the gaping doorway. Tony slumped against the banister, panting, blood dripping. "Call the cops!" he gasped at us. I was already dialing 911, hands shaking. "Someone broke in! There's a knife! Blood! Hurry!" Police arrived in minutes, sirens wailing. They took statements. Tony claimed that it was a work dispute. Some guys from the club settling scores. "Ain't the first time," he admitted to the officer, wincing as they bandaged his arm. The cops eyed the door. "You need better security," one said. "This neighborhood's rough." "No sh*." After they left, Jake and I cleaned up the mess, sweeping splinters, propping the door back up with duct tape. Tony apologized upstairs. "Sorry you had to see that. Won't happen again." But it did. The crazy things piled up. A week later, Tony's ex showed up at 3 a.m., banging on the door, screaming obscenities.
"You cheating I know you're in there with some girl."
She hurled a bottle through the window. Glass shattered everywhere. We hid in our room, Jake holding me. "This is insane," I cried. "We can't live like this." Then there was the party that he threw just for a few buddies. Turned into a brawl. Fists flying, someone puking in the sink. I confronted him the next day. "Tony, this has to stop. We're scared here." He laughed it off. "Life's messy, sweetheart. Grow a pair." That. The final straw was when I overheard him on another call. "Yeah, got this couple downstairs. It's hot. Maybe I'll make a move." My blood ran cold. That night, I packed our bags. "We're out," I told Jake. "I don't care if we crash on friends' couches." We confronted Mr. Rossi the next morning. "This place is a hazard," I said. "Tony's a disaster. We're breaking the lease." He grumbled, but refunded our deposit, probably to avoid a lawsuit. Tony watched us load the car, smirking. "Chickens," he muttered. We found a tiny one-bedroom in Queens. Overpriced, but safe. Life's full of Tonys, but you don't have to share a wall with them. I remember the day Julia and I decided that we needed a third roommate like it was yesterday. We were sitting in our living room. Julia was my best friend from college. We'd bonded over late-night coding sessions and a shared love for sci-fi novels. She was the kind of person who could fix your computer while quoting Star Trek lines. Always level-headed and kind. Me? I'm Audrey, the introverted graphic designer who preferred quiet evenings with my sketch pad over anything social. We got along perfectly, but rent was killing us. Chicago wasn't cheap, even in our rundown neighborhood. "Look, if we split it 3 ways, we could actually afford to eat something besides ramen," Julia said one evening, scrolling through her phone. She was lounging on the couch, her feet propped up on the coffee table that we'd salvaged from a curb. I nodded, sipping my tea. "Yeah, but who? I don't want some random weirdo turning our place into a frat house." She laughed. "Don't worry. I know this guy through a friend. Derek. He's looking for a spot. Says he's reliable. My buddy vouches for him." I trusted Julia's judgment. She'd never steered me wrong. So, we met Derek at a coffee shop downtown. "Hey, ladies. Thanks for considering me. I've been crashing on couches, but I need stability. I work in sales. Good money, flexible hours." We chatted for an hour. He talked about growing up in a small town, how he loved hiking and reading, stuff that made him sound normal. Julia and I exchanged glances. He seemed fine. Rent's due on the 1st. Bills split even. No drama, okay? Absolutely. I'm all about respect. He moved in a week later, hauling in boxes with a couple of guys who helped without making a fuss. At first, things were okay. He'd say good morning, keep his room tidy from what I could see through the cracked door. And then about 2 weeks in, the lies started piling up. Derek had this way of spinning tales that sounded almost believable at first, but they'd unravel if you thought about them for 5 seconds. One night, Julia and I were making dinner, spaghetti, when he wandered into the kitchen. "You girls ever been to Europe?" he asked, grabbing a soda from the fridge without asking. "Nope," Julia said. "What's it like?" "Oh, man. I spent a summer backpacking through Italy. Stayed in this villa owned by a count. Real nobility. He let me crash there after I saved his dog from drowning in a canal." Julia raised an eyebrow. "A count? Like actual royalty?" "Yeah, old family ties or something. The dog was this rare breed worth thousands. The guy was so grateful, he hooked me up with his private chef for a week." I didn't say anything, but it bugged me. Who just casually saves a count's dog? Later, when I Googled it on my phone, nothing matched up. But I let it slide. Maybe he was exaggerating to impress us. And then came the really bizarre ones. A few days later, we were all watching TV, some documentary on space, since Julia and I were geeks like that. Derek piped up during a commercial. "You know, I almost became an astronaut." I choked on my popcorn. "What?" "True story," he said, leaning back like it was no big deal. "NASA recruited me out of college. I passed all the physicals, even the zero-gravity sim. But I turned it down because I have this rare blood condition. Makes me allergic to space radiation or something. Doctor said I'd glow in the dark after a month up there." Julia burst out laughing. "Allergic to space? That's a new one." "Yeah, it's genetic. My great uncle was in the Apollo program, but same issue." They hushed it up. We exchanged looks after he went to bed. "What the hell was that?" I whispered. "No idea. But if he's paying rent, who cares?" Except he wasn't. The first of the month came, and Derek handed over a partial payment. Half the rent, no utilities. Sorry. Work's slow this week. I'll catch up next payday." Julia frowned. "Okay, but don't make it a habit." It became a habit. By the second month, he hadn't paid a dime. "Client stiffed me on a big commission," he'd say. Or, "Bank froze my account. Identity theft." Always some excuse, delivered with that polite smile. And the parties. God, the parties. Every single night, without fail. I'd come home from work, exhausted from designing logos all day, and there'd be strangers in our living room, music blaring. "Hey, Audrey, join us!" Derek would yell, slapping high fives with guys I'd never seen. "I'm good," I'd mutter, retreating to my room. As an introvert, it drained me. One night, I counted 12 people, mostly dudes, a few girls giggling on the couch. I overheard one guy bragging about shoplifting from a mall. "Easy money, man. Cops don't care about small stuff." Another time, a sketchy-looking woman cornered me in the kitchen. "You seem smart. Ever heard of this essential oils business? You could make thousands from home." "No, thanks," I said, edging away. It was an MLM pitch. She wouldn't let up until I locked myself in my bedroom. Derek's friends were a revolving door of trouble. Petty thieves, online scammers. He'd laugh it off if I mentioned it. "They're harmless, Audrey, just blowing off steam." But it wasn't harmless. One evening, I confronted him after finding my yogurt gone from the fridge. Again. "Derek, that's my food. You can't just eat everything." He looked apologetic. "Oh, shoot, I thought it was communal. I'll replace it." He never did. Instead, he'd bring over pizza once in a blue moon, but only for his buddies. "This is for the crew," he'd say, winking. And then there was the bean incident. He filled a pot with dry beans and water, left it on the counter. Days passed. Gonna make chili, he claimed. By day 5, mold was forming. I tossed it, and he flipped out. "What the hell, Audrey? Those were heirloom beans from my grandma's farm." "Your grandma's farm? The one you said burned down last week?" He stammered. Yeah, salvage stock." Julia and I started locking our doors, hiding groceries in our rooms. But the real kicker was his creepy vibe with women. Julia was gay, so he left her alone, but anytime girls showed up, friends of friends, whoever, he'd pull this daddy routine. One night, I overheard him in the living room with some girl named Beth. "You know, you remind me of a lost puppy. I should adopt you. Call me daddy and I'll take care of everything." She laughed nervously. What? "Oh, it's just fine. Daddy's got you." I cringed from my room, wondering if it was his weird seduction tactic. Did it work? Probably on some, judging by the sounds I'd hear through the walls some nights. I didn't judge. Things escalated when the damage started. His parties left the place trashed. My coffee table got a huge scratch from someone dragging a cooler across it. The carpet had burns from dropped cigarettes. And electronics? Julia's speaker blew out from overuse. My laptop charger went missing. Probably swiped by one of his friends. We tried talking to him. "Derek, this has to stop," Julia said one morning after cleaning up vomit from the bathroom. "Pay up or tone it down." "I'll handle it. Big check coming in." Lies. All lies. The bizarre stories kept coming. Another doozy. He claimed that he had been a child actor in a famous sitcom. I remember that show from the 90s. I was the kid in episode 7. Got cut from syndication for legal reasons. My agent sued the network. Julia rolled her eyes. "Which show?" "Can't say. NDA." By the end of the next month, the worst days of my life, I was done. I came home to yet another gathering. People spilling into the hallway, music shaking the walls. One guy was fiddling with our TV, trying to hook up a game console. "Hey, this yours?" he asked me. "Get out, all of you." Derek emerged from his room with a girl on his arm. "Whoa, Audrey, chill, it's Friday." "No, this is our apartment. You're not paying, you're destroying it, and I'm sick of your stories." The room went quiet. His friends stared. "What stories?" "Like how you fought off a bear in Alaska with a pocket knife." I shot back. That was another one he'd told us last week, claiming scars on his arm that looked like old acne marks. "Or the time that you dated a supermodel who left you for a prince," Julia added, joining me. "Pay what you owe or leave." You girls are overreacting. I'll sort the money tomorrow." But tomorrow, he was gone. Bolted in the night, leaving his room a mess. Clothes strewn, empty bottles, even a half-eaten sandwich molding on the floor. The aftermath was hell. For weeks, his friends kept showing up, knocking at odd hours, looking confused. "Derek here? We were supposed to hang." He left, owed us money and split. One guy chuckled. "Yeah, that's Derek. Or Derek, whatever he's calling himself now, always pulling that shit." Derek? So Derek wasn't even his real name. Figures. "Well, if you see him, tell him he owes us $700. They'd shrug. Good luck with that. Cleaning up took days. The apartment reeked, but we scrubbed it top to bottom. The damaged table? I sanded it myself. Carpets? Professional cleaners out of pocket. Electronics? Replaced what we could. Eventually, we moved on. Found a smaller place just for 2. Life got better.
Life has been a taste of different things. I've had to live through phases quicker than I had imagined than it would have been for me a decade ago when I started on this path, with nothing more to my name than a varsity t-shirt around my neck, my computer, whatever food or drink I had in hand at the time. I had been in good times when I look back at it, dimly lit rooms that were empty for the most part, until I started to define what it was that I wanted to do with my life and the enormous ambition that I had forced onto my own shoulders. Financial technology was something I had been passionate about all the time, and I had the skill to see a company come to life. It didn't take long for me to start a company with a few people like myself. I could have handled things better when I think about it, but how could I when I thought about the weight of my first failing business hanging on my shoulder? What I had in ethics, I admittedly lacked in personal management. I had one thought in my mind, and one thought only: the business had to work. My first team had Laura for communications and public relations. Zach managed our finances, Justin worked with me on administration, and Mark, whose work I had stumbled upon by chance on an obscure social media platform, did great work modeling our first usable application. For many reasons, Mark was brilliant. He was the child of 2 professors, and he was elite with computing from a very tender age. His first app was built when he was 9, and he had been courted by big companies, but Mark turned them all down. Tall, slender, bespectacled Mark, with eyes sunken into his face from peering at a screen for too long. His slouch was visible, whether he was seated or standing, the bulk of his shoulders leaning forward. Mark hardly ever spoke to anyone else in the company but me. His ear-piercing screech when he activated something beyond my expectations with the application gave off a feeling of a happy dog who was only too pleased with getting pets from his human. Mark's quirks were not a problem for me at the beginning of our company, even when it was failing. We worked in the same space, and we always bounced ideas off of how well the algorithm should work. Where my skills in computing programming were limited, Mark was seemingly limitless. He used the computer like a master painter within the cage of his own genius. It didn't faze me until we hit our first break during the pandemic as a company after years of failing and struggling. It was clear we needed more programmers to handle the business. Mark did not think so. Mark called me lazy and uninventive. We would be just like every other payment platform out there if we cannot maintain a small company that can innovate through problems, Mark argued. I didn't think so. We were expanding regardless. He said it was a pandemic effect, and expanding would cost us too many processes and too little time for execution. And I told him I didn't want to argue with an employee as to how best I saw fit to run my company. He was visibly hurt, just was I. I'd never seen him as pale as much as he was, his eyes blank and his features motionless. For a moment, I thought I noticed his lips quiver as he stood in front of my new office. Perhaps he perceived something in me that I didn't. But Mark said nothing and left my office. Mark did not turn up for work the day after that, and I never saw him despite all my best efforts to reach him. I wrote mails and sent text messages that never got replied to. The hassles of our newly found success as a company soon swayed my attention from Mark. It didn't help my relationship with him that soon we had to move to Iceland to set up servers in a remote data center. I lived in Iceland for many years until that night. It had been a very chilly night, just like any other night, but the only strange event being that the blizzard suddenly cut off the power. It was perplexing, as it was scarcely ever happening. So I thought to go check it out, holding nothing but a flashlight. I was not fully aware of the ominous silence until I was a few paces away from the door. The silence seemed to overwhelm me. I struggled to reconcile the strange feeling that came over me. It was not immediately obvious when I stretched my light out into the distance, this way and that way. It was then that I saw him, tall as ever, slimmer with clothes clung to his body, making every motion sheer visible. I was struck in the moment by a rush of emotions that were difficult to interpret. "Who's there?" I called out, even though I could sense his presence. "An old friend, Larry. And I've come to collect," he answered, Confusion turned to dread as I was standing face to face with Mark with a menacing smirk on his face. My flashlight caught his full form, and I saw a glimmer of a knife in his hand. "You took it all from me, Larry. You took my life from me and you got rich, didn't you?" It was all about money, not about solving problems. He barked at me, marching towards me deliberately, delivering a chilling scene to my senses as he displayed the knife. I wanted to run for it, but I knew I couldn't possibly outrun such a desperate man. I tried common sense and started to speak to him. It wasn't about the money. Money was important too, but other people's ambitions relied on the fact that they were also doing something that they could aspire to. "Liar. Always. I'm gonna kill you." He screeched and latched onto me with the blade in his hand. He struck the first blow, and the blade thawed into my chest, just into the fleshier part of my shoulder joint. I let out a cry of agony and kicked out as he withdrew the blade. My feet hit him in the balls, and he tumbled forward, leaving room for me to escape. I took my chance, and this time I ran for it, shutting the glass door behind me. Mark chased after me, eyes driven mad with rage, slamming the knife into the door with some hope that he would break through. His purpose was obvious, but I had never been more terrified in my life as I stood there, calling the police on Mark. The bloodied knife in his hand stained the glass as he repeatedly struck until the cops arrived. I spent the day at the hospital with my stab wound, and I moved cities far apart from us. But it was the most horrifying night of my life.
I'm a married man. I was happy with my wife, Carol, but I had these needs that she couldn't fulfill. Our love life was pretty boring. I went online and satisfied my urges that way, mostly through chats and stuff. That's how I met Veronica. We hit it off instantly. She was a very imaginative person, and we did a bunch of role play. I won't go into specifics. Eventually, we started meeting in person. She lived one town over, and I actually own property over there, so we used my second apartment as a place to meet. She was married too, so we had to be careful. This went on for a couple months, and it was incredible. My nights with Veronica were full of passion and excitement. We special ordered all kinds of costumes and devices, and we tried a little bit of everything. Carol had no idea. She could tell that I was happier overall, but she never seemed to suspect a thing. I just told her I had to travel a lot for work. Sure, I felt a little guilty, but it was worth it. Until that terrible night, a few weeks ago, when everything went up in flames. Literally. Veronica had suggested some fire-based roleplay. That's all she told me beforehand. I had no idea what to expect. When I arrived at the apartment, she was wearing this wild orange and red costume. She was a fire goddess. She got a costume for me too, a volcano. It was surprisingly comfortable. As I put it on, she lit candles all around the apartment. There were hundreds of them on the floor and shelves. It was very romantic. I stepped out in my costume, and she ushered me across the room like the goddess she was. The flames lit up her beautiful face. I was so turned on. Then she pulled me onto the bed. There was a platter of cheeses next to us, and we fed each other as we got into character. She made up this backstory where she was a virgin sacrificed to the volcano, and now she was a fire spirit. Something like that. I don't quite remember, considering what happened next, but it was interesting. Veronica was always good at improvising. Before we really got going, I heard a skittering noise behind me. Our cheese platter had attracted a mouse, and it was running across the floor. It started squeaking horribly, and Veronica looked terrified. I couldn't turn my head all the way around because of the costume, but pretty soon I saw it. The poor mouse had gotten too close to the candles. It was on fire, racing around the room like a little fireball. Pretty soon, flames were everywhere, and that mouse jumped onto the bed, spreading fire onto the sheets. My costume was thick and rubber, so I was protected, but Veronica's draping fabric was very flammable. Pretty soon, her whole costume was consumed. She jumped off the bed, trying to tear off her clothes. "Stop, drop, and roll, Veronica! Stop, drop, and roll!" She was too panicked to listen. She thrashed around, which only spread the fire more. The sliding door to the balcony was wide open. I watched in horror as my mistress stumbled onto the balcony as she patted at her burning body. In seconds, she toppled over the edge. No! We were on the second story, so I wasn't sure if she survived the fall. All I knew was that the fire was everywhere now, and I needed to get out of the apartment. I tried to look through the smoke, but I could barely see. I couldn't breathe at all. Flames were blocking the exit and getting closer. There was only one escape now. I had to jump off the balcony too. Moving on instinct, I ran through the smoke and got to the edge. I could see Veronica's body on the ground below. She wasn't on fire anymore, but her costume was black and melted into her skin. She looked horrible, and one of her feet was bent to the side, clearly broken. But she was moving, so at least she was still alive. I could feel the heat against my back. I didn't have much time left. I took a deep breath and jumped. When I landed next to Veronica, it didn't hurt at all. My thick costume protected me in the fall. In fact, I bounced a little. I had to breathe deeply because of all the smoke inhalation, but otherwise I was totally fine. Veronica looked awful, and I didn't have a scratch on me. "Are you okay?" "What do you think?" I looked up at the apartment and saw that the smoke was gone. The sprinkler system must have switched on seconds after I jumped. An ambulance came to pick up Veronica, and the fire department went upstairs to check out the damage. I took off my volcano costume and the paramedics checked me out. They said I was fine, but they gave me some judgmental looks as they took Veronica away. I changed into my spare clothes from my car and was about to drive to the hospital to check on Veronica, when all of a sudden I saw my wife's car in the parking lot. She got out and ran toward me. "Are you okay? I heard your apartment caught fire." I didn't know what to say. I was so shocked to see her that I didn't ask her how she heard about the fire. I obviously couldn't go to the hospital now. I hugged Carol and started crying. She told me everything was going to be okay, that we could just go home and forget this ever happened. The insurance company would pay for the repairs and we'd never have to speak of this again. I kept thinking about poor Veronica, with her broken ankle and the burns all over her body, but I didn't say anything. I just let Carol comfort me. "What do you say, honey? Let's never mention this night again. Promise me?" "I promise." As I said that, I noticed something in the back seat of her car. It was a little crate, the kind meant to carry mice.
The silence in my house usually felt peaceful, but that night it felt like holding my breath underwater. I lived in a sprawling ranch-style place at the end of a cul-de-sac. Great for privacy, terrible for when things went sideways. I had listed an old 55-inch plasma TV on Craigslist. It was a relic, heavy as a tombstone, and I just wanted it gone to make room for a sleek new OLED. The ad was simple. Free to a good home. U-Haul. I got a bite from a woman named Carla. Her texts were polite, bordering on overly eager. We set a time for 6 p.m. I moved the beast of a TV into the living room, wiped the screen down, and waited. 6 p.m. came and went. By 7:30, I was annoyed. By 8 o'clock, I had written her off and cracked a beer, sinking into the sofa to watch the news. Then my phone buzzed. Carla.
"I am so sorry. Work ran crazy late. Can I still come?"
I looked at the time. It was nearly 10 p.m. My gut said no. My gut said, tell her to kick rocks and repost it tomorrow. But the logical, impatient part of my brain just wanted the clutter out of my house. Me. It's pretty late. Can you be here in 10 minutes? Carla.
"Yes, leaving now. GPS says 10 minutes.
I sighed, draining the last of my beer. All right, I muttered to the empty room. 10 minutes. 20 minutes bled by. Me. You coming? I'm about to head to bed. Carla.
"Traffic was bad. 10 more minutes. Promise."
I paced the kitchen. It was 10:45 p.m. Who picks up a used TV at nearly 11 at night? At 11 p.m., I'd had enough. I grabbed my phone, thumbs flying. Me. Look, let's just do this tomorrow or forget it. It's too late. 3 dots rippled on the screen immediately. Carla, just pulling up. Don't close the door. I walked to the front window and peered through the blinds. Headlights swept across my front lawn, blindingly bright, cutting through the pitch black of the cul-de-sac. I unlocked the front door and stepped onto the porch, leaving the storm door latched. The car's engine cut out, but the headlights stayed on, blinding me. The driver's door opened. A woman stepped out. "David?" she called out. "Yeah, TV's just inside the entry. It's heavy, though." Great, she said, walking toward the porch. Then, the passenger door opened. My stomach dropped. A man climbed out. He was big, tall, muscular. He didn't look at me. He looked at the house. Then the back door opened. Another guy. This one was skinnier, twitchy, smoking a cigarette that glowed angry red in the dark. "Whoa, hold on." The woman reached the steps. The 2 men flanked her, lingering back near the bumper of the car. It felt tactical. It felt practiced. "What's going on?" I asked. "We're here for the unit," Carla said, smiling. It wasn't a nice smile. It was tight, showing too many teeth. "You didn't say you were bringing a moving crew. I told you only you come in." "They're just here to help lift it. And we want to see the entertainment center, too." I froze. The what? "The entertainment center. The ad said TV and stand." "No, it didn't. Just the TV. And I'm not letting 3 people into my house at 11 o'clock at night." The skinny guy flicked his cigarette butt onto my driveway. A spark shower erupted and died. "We drove 40 minutes, man. We just want to see the gear." The deal was for the TV, I told her, looking only at Carla. And the deal was you. If you want it, you come in alone. They stay in the car. She crossed her arms, her demeanor shifting instantly from apologetic to hostile. "I can't lift it alone. I need at least one other person's opinion on the condition." "Opinion? It's free. It turns on. That's the condition. Take it or leave it." "You're being unreasonable." She took a step up the porch. I instinctively checked the lock on the storm door. It was engaged. "I'm being safe. I live alone. I don't know you. You show up 2 hours late with 2 random dudes? No way. Deal's off." The big guy took a step forward. He wasn't looking at the TV anymore. He was looking at the windows, scanning the perimeter of the house. "Come on, David. We just need to check it out. Don't be an ass." "I asked you to leave," I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Now." She stared at me, her eyes hard. "Wow," she said, shaking her head with exaggerated disappointment. "That is not being a very good American, is it? Turning away people in need." The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. "I'm fine with that. Get off my property." "You serious?" the skinny guy yelled from the driveway. "We came all this way." "I'm calling the cops in 30 seconds, I said, keeping my voice level, though my hands were shaking. "Get in the car." Carla glared at me, muttering something under her breath that sounded like prick, then spun around. "Let's go," she yelled to the guys. I didn't wait for them to move. I stepped back inside, slammed the main door, and threw the deadbolt. I locked the handle, and then I engaged the chain. My heart was racing like a trapped bird. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed a knife. Useless, I knew, but it felt better than nothing, and killed the porch light so that they couldn't see inside. I crept to the side of the window, peeling back the edge of the blind just an inch. They hadn't left. They were standing by the car, arguing. The skinny guy was gesturing wildly at the house. Carla was on her phone, typing furiously. Then, the big guy walked over to the edge of my driveway, right near where my mailbox stood. He looked directly at the house, unzipped his pants, and started pissing right onto the pavement. He just stood there, relieving himself, staring at my dark window like he knew exactly where I was standing. "Unbelievable," I whispered. After he finished, he shook himself off, zipped up, and lumbered back to the car. They all piled in. The engine roared to life, and they reversed aggressively, tires screeching against the asphalt. They peeled out of the cul-de-sac, taillights disappearing into the night. I stood there for a long time, watching the empty street. I checked every window in the house. I checked the back door. I checked the garage. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with the lights off, watching the driveway, the old plasma TV sitting dark and heavy in the corner. It wasn't just a flaky buyer. It was a casing. They wanted inside. They wanted to see the layout, see what else I had, see if I really was alone. The next morning, I dragged the TV to the curb with a free sign taped to the glass. It was gone in an hour. I turned 30 in the middle of a heat wave in Austin. My coworker Jenna threw me a little party at her apartment on Riverside. Cheap tequila, a sheet cake from H-E-B, and one real gift that made me gasp. A bottle of Blanton's, the one with the little horse on top. It wasn't even wrapped right. She just slapped a red bow on it and said, "Happy birthday, bitch. Don't share it with anyone who doesn't deserve you." I carried that bottle home like it was made of glass eggs. My roommate, Caleb, was sprawled out on the couch in his boxers playing Call of Duty. He glanced up when I walked in. "Damn, somebody loves you," he said, eyeing the Blantons. "Yeah, don't get any ideas," I laughed. Setting it on the highest shelf in the kitchen, the one I have to stand on a chair to reach. "That is for special occasions only." He raised both hands. Scout's honor. 2 days later, I flew to Denver for my cousin's wedding. I was gone 4 nights. When I got back, Caleb was passed out on the couch with the TV still on. I went to the kitchen to make coffee and reached for the bottle, just to look at it, you know? It felt lighter. I unscrewed the cap. The color was wrong. Too pale. I took a sniff. I poured a splash into a glass. It looked like weak tea. "Caleb," I said, shaking his shoulder, "wake up." He groaned, rubbed his face. Ugh, what time is it? "Did you drink my birthday whiskey?" He blinked at me, confused, like I'd asked if he'd murdered someone. "What? No. Caleb, it's half gone and filled with water. Like a child." He sat up. "I swear to God, Liv, I didn't touch it. You're the only other person here." "Maybe it evaporated?" He tried to grin. I held up the bottle. "Evaporated into tap water?" He looked away. I might have had a little. I don't remember. Things have been blurry. "Half the bottle is not a little." "Well, I'll buy you another one," he mumbled. "With what? Your dad's savings?" That was mean, but I was shaking. That bottle was the one nice thing anyone had done for me all year. He didn't replace it. Of course he didn't. A month later, he got the DUI. Came home at 3 a.m., told me the cops took his license on the spot. His parents wired him money for a lawyer, but the job that he'd had at the tech startup let him go the next week. Budget cuts, they said. But we both knew it was the DUI. That's when the real drinking started. He'd wake up, crack a beer, play Xbox, pass out, repeat. Our apartment turned into a landfill of pizza boxes and empty handles of Evan Williams. I'd come home from work and find him on the balcony smoking, eyes red, telling me the world was rigged.
You don't get it, Liv.
He slurred one night.
I'm done. Completely done.
I was tired. We're all done, Caleb. Put your half of rent in my account like a grown-up. He nodded like he meant it. He didn't. I didn't notice for months. I was working 60-hour weeks at the marketing agency, trying to get promoted so I could finally move out. I paid my half of the rent on the first of every month like clockwork. I assumed he did too. Then the eviction notice came. It was taped to our door in a bright orange envelope. 3 months behind, $4,800 owed. Final notice before lockout. I stood in the hallway reading it 3 times, heart hammering so hard I thought I'd throw up. I called the leasing office. The woman was kind but firm. Both names are on the lease, ma'am. You're jointly and severally liable. I stormed inside. Caleb was on the couch, eyes glued to the TV. Did you know about this? I threw the notice at him. It fluttered onto his chest. He looked down, read the big red letters. That's your response? I thought I paid October. Maybe. You thought? Jesus Christ, Caleb! I used the rent money for my car payment. I was gonna be homeless without a car, Liv. I was gonna catch up. I wanted to kill him. I really did. Instead, I called his mom. Mrs. Dawson? It's Olivia, Caleb's roommate. I laid it all out. DUI, drinking, stolen rent money, eviction. She was quiet the whole time. And then she said, I'll wire the back rent today. I'm so sorry, honey. They paid it. All $4,800. The leasing office filed the eviction anyway because the process had already started. I begged. I cried in the manager's office like a lunatic. They gave me a letter stating that the balance was paid in full and we were never actually removed from the premises. It's the only thing that saved me from sleeping in my car. I moved out 2 weeks later, packed my stuff while Caleb sat on the balcony drinking the last of my watered-down Blanton straight from the bottle. He didn't help carry a single box. You hate me, he said. Not really a question. I don't have the energy to hate you. I just need to not see your face for a while. He nodded, took another pull. I believed the story. I just didn't believe he'd change. That was 2 years ago. Last month, I closed on a little house in East Austin. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. The mortgage guy raised an eyebrow at the eviction on my record. I slid the letter across his desk without saying a word. He read it, nodded, stamped everything approved. Needless to say, Caleb was my worst roommate ever. God. I was an influencer. It was the job I always dreamed of, but I had no idea how difficult it would be. Being an influencer is way more work than people realize, especially since the persona I created for myself was almost completely fake. I acted like I was fabulously wealthy, but in reality, I was a 25-year-old who still lived with my parents. And my parents, for the record, didn't have a lot of money themselves. At first, I faked my videos completely, pretending I was on island vacations when I was really filming in my backyard. Over time, I started getting brand sponsorships, so my videos became a little more legit. I had actual products that I could try on camera. Still, it was a full-time job, and there were days when I wished that I had just gone to college like my parents wanted. Last summer, I was in a pretty dark place. My follower count was flatlining. and another influencer that I collabed with ended up getting arrested. Long story, but he's a creep, and the scandal reflected badly on me just by association. I was really starting to think about quitting the internet completely and getting some random waitress job or something. At the very least, I needed to slow down a little. So, one day, I did a live stream announcing that I was going to be taking a wellness day at home. I usually did at least 3 videos a day, but I told my followers that they wouldn't be hearing from me until the next morning. Then, I switched off my phone and I locked it in my parents' upstairs safe just so I didn't have the temptation. Then, I washed off my makeup, got into my pajamas, and tried to enjoy the day without thinking about my online brand. Now, for the next hour, everything was wonderful. I watched TV, relaxed on the couch, and ignored all my worries. I realized that this was the only way to continue my influencer career. I couldn't be camera ready 24/7 anymore. I needed vacation days like these to recharge my battery. I was watching TV on the couch when I heard footsteps behind me. At first, I thought that my parents had gotten back from their vacation. "Hey, I thought you weren't supposed to get back until the weekend." When they didn't answer, I got scared. Somehow, I knew that the person behind me was a stranger. Before I could turn around, I felt someone's hand clamp down on my shoulder. "Don't scream." I jumped off the couch and spun around. The man was young and weirdly handsome, with a long scar across his forehead and a rope in his big hands. What do you want?" "Your money." I tried to explain that I didn't have any money, but he didn't believe me. He'd watched all my videos. He'd seen the expensive clothes I had pretended to buy and the luxury vacations I faked in the backyard. He believed all the lies that I'd been telling my followers, and no matter what I said, I couldn't convince him that it was all fake. He pretended to listen, but when it was clear that I wasn't going to tell him what he wanted to hear, he grabbed my wrists and tied them together with a zip tie. He moved so fast that I didn't have the chance to push him away. "Show me where you're hiding everything. Start with all your jewelry." Okay, I'll do what you want." I pretended to go along with his demands. He let me stand up and lead him to my bedroom. I decided to show him my jewelry drawer. I had a ton of fake stuff in there, and if he thought that all my necklaces and rings were real on my videos, well, then he might think they're real now. I opened the drawer, but up close he instantly knew that everything I owned was fake. "Where's the real stuff, like in your videos?" I knew that I couldn't trick him, so I tried to make a run for it. With my hands tied, I couldn't fight back, and with my phone locked in my parents' safe, I couldn't call the police. So I raced across the house before he could grab me. I made it to the front door with plenty of time to escape, but I couldn't open it. The door was deadbolted, and I needed both hands to open the lock. With the zip tie limiting my movements, I was trapped. I saw my neighbor through the front window. He was walking his dog just 20 feet away. I screamed. He didn't hear me. I kicked the door. He didn't hear that either. And then he was gone. The robber stood behind me now. He gently placed his hand on my shoulder. He didn't have to be violent with me. He knew that I was trapped. "I'll untie you and leave as soon as you cooperate." "Seriously, I don't have anything. Look around you. Does this look like the house of a rich influencer?" I think he finally believed me. His expression went from patience to disappointment. And then he got angry. He punched me in the stomach, hard enough for me to double over. "Liar!" I couldn't argue with him. I was a liar. My entire career was built on lies. But that didn't mean that I deserved this kind of treatment. I tried to think of anything that I could give him. Anything valuable. Then I remembered my parents' set of silverware. They inherited it from my grandma. It had to be worth something. I asked him to follow me into the kitchen. He did. I nodded towards the cabinet where he kept the silverware. He opened it and he started rifling around. Now that he was facing the other direction, I looked around for something that I could use to attack him. There were knives on the counter, but he'd hear me if I grabbed one, and I didn't want to stab him. I just needed something heavy to knock him out. The toaster was too big. The mixer was still plugged in. He started to turn around. I was losing my chance. Without thinking, I grabbed some appliance that was attached to the wall and I slammed it against his head. One hit and he toppled to the ground. He was woozy, but still conscious. I didn't know what to do next. If only I hadn't locked away my phone. And then I looked down at my hands and I realized what I was holding. The house phone. I literally never used it before. I completely forgot that it existed. Did it even work anymore? Yeah, it did. I dialed 911 before the man could get to his feet. He ran off before the police arrived. When they got here, they untied my hands and they checked if I had any injuries. I still don't know who that man was, and I'm honestly not worried about it. He won't come back. There are other richer people that he can rob. Once the police left, I decided to give up on being an influencer. It was way too much trouble than it was worth. I made a video confessing to all the lies and telling everyone about the attempted robbery. I thought that would be my final video, until it went viral. I'm still an influencer, but now I'm more popular than ever. And I'm totally honest with my followers.
My boyfriend Jeremy and I were on a cross-country trip from California to Virginia. We'd been in a very happy relationship for 3 years, so I assumed it would be a great experience. It wasn't. By the third day, when we were driving through the ugly New Mexico desert, we started snapping at each other. He didn't like the music I wanted to play. I was annoyed at his loud gum chewing. It was all very minor stuff, but because we were trapped in the car without anyone else to talk to, things escalated pretty quickly. We just pulled into a gas station outside Santa Fe when the fight started. He wanted me to go inside while he was filling up our tank so that I could buy snacks. I told him we already had plenty of snacks and I didn't want to waste money. He started screaming at me, and I screamed back. It was pretty awful. Eventually, I gave in and told him I'd buy him whatever he wanted. Then I left him at the car and stormed inside. The gas station was empty. No one was at the counter. I went to the bathroom to splash some water on my face. I needed to cool off. Then I came out, slowly browsed the snack aisles, and picked up all Jeremy's favorites. Slowly, I was able to calm down. The cashier came in from the back door. I assumed he was on a smoke break or something. He seemed nice enough and asked me how my day was going. Great, I told him. But I think you could tell from my voice that I was still annoyed. He handed me my bag of snacks. He had a big smile on his face and said, "If you need anything else, let me know." I thanked him and left. When I got back outside, I saw that the car was gone. At first, I thought that Jeremy had pulled up to the side of the building because I was taking too long. But I looked around the car parking lot and found that the car wasn't there. I couldn't believe it. Jeremy left me in the middle of nowhere. This didn't seem like him at all. How could he do this to me? And more importantly, what was I going to do now? I pulled out my phone and called him, and he didn't pick up. It was a really hot day, and sweat oozed down my face. I walked back inside. "Back so soon?" the cashier asked. I explained that my boyfriend had ditched me here. I was so angry that the words barely came out of my mouth. The cashier walked around the counter and gave me a tight hug. "I'm so sorry," he said. "You don't deserve to be treated like that." I'd never met this man before, obviously, but I felt really comfortable in his arms. I could tell that he genuinely felt sorry for me. Eventually, he pulled away and offered me to hang out with him in the back of the store until Jeremy changed his mind and came back. It seemed like a good idea. At the very least, I'd be able to sit for a while and calm down. He led me to the little back room, which had a sofa, a table, and a small TV. The AC was on, so it was nice and cool. As I sat down, the man ran to the window and closed the curtain so the sunlight wouldn't be in my face. Then he sat next to me. "My name is Tom," he said. "Carly," I told him. It was awkward at first, but slowly we started talking. I told him all about my trip so far. I asked him what it was like to live in the middle of the desert. He seemed like a really nice, charming guy. He was also extremely handsome. Honestly, he was better looking than Jeremy. I asked him if he was dating anyone. "Not at the moment," he said, "but it's easy to find people." I flinched a little. That was kind of weird to say. We continued talking, and I noticed that Tom kept glancing towards the curtain-covered window. I wasn't sure, but it seemed like he was hiding something just outside. I stood up, pretending to stretch my legs, and I walked over to the window. "What are you doing?" he snapped at me. That's when I knew he was definitely hiding something. He jumped up to stop me, but I was too fast. I pulled open the window and immediately saw what he was trying to hide. Our car parked behind the building, and Jeremy still inside, slumped against the steering wheel. "What the? You weren't supposed to see that," Tom said. He stepped closer until his face was inches from mine. "What did you do?" "I heard the way he talked to you," Tom explains, "and I couldn't stand it. You deserved better. So while you were in the bathroom, I went outside and took care of him." "You killed him?" "I was trying to help you. You don't need someone like that in your life." I was too shocked to speak. He leaned closer and tried to kiss me. The man was a psychopath. In his twisted brain, he thought that he was being chivalrous, that he was saving me. I pushed him away. Immediately, his face twisted into a furious scowl. "You're just like all the others, you ungrateful idiot." He lunged at me, his large hands grabbing my shoulders and shoving me onto the cold floor. I struggled to twist out of his grip, but he pinned me to the floor. His shoulders struck the edge of the table, and the small TV crashed onto the floor. It narrowly missed my head. "I won't let you go until you admit that I helped you," he screamed in my face. I couldn't push him off me, so I reached my arm towards the shattered TV at my side. Desperately, I grabbed onto a shard of glass. It sliced into my palm, but it didn't stop me. In one quick motion, I jammed the glass upward, piercing him in the side of the neck. His eyes shot open, and his hands loosened their grip. I pulled away from him and jumped to my feet. He was on his knees, trying to pull the glass from his neck. "Don't pull it out," I told him, but he didn't listen. He yanked out the shard, and a splatter of blood burst out of him. In seconds, he collapsed to the ground. He wasn't dead yet, but he was very quickly bleeding out. I shakily pulled out my phone and called 911. By the time they came, Tom was dead. So was Jeremy. After giving my statement to the police, they let me go. I drove all the way back home. I still haven't told anyone what happened. I'm not strong enough. I can't believe that my whole life changed just because I'd gotten into an argument at a gas station.